Eric, welcome.
Peter, thank you.
Thank you for coming to do this. You're the hardest person to schedule in the world, but we got here.
Well, I appreciate you being patient with me. Forgive me.
No, all forgiven. Thanks for doing this. We're joined by my friend Travis. I've made a few podcasts with Travis. I tend to be better asking the questions, but when we get into a bit of a discussion about deeper topics, Travis here is the expert I asked to join us.
He's the muscle.
He's the muscle. He's the weight. He's the brain. Where do we start?
There's no chance I'm the brain at this table.
Well, there's no chance I'm the brain. All right. So you've been going down the Bitcoin rabbit hole for around, I know you've been in a long time, but.
Well, I found out about it, I think, in 2010 from Jordan Greenhall, now Jordan Hall. And I was astounded.
But you've been a little bit more public about it recently. I care about your recent experience.
Sure. Well, okay. In 2010, I wrote this essay called Go Virtual, Young Man, about decamping into the electron layer. The idea that we should leave our physical personas behind and that we should realize that more and more things. And it was in part built on the idea that the double spend problem in crypto is effectively a conservation problem in the physical world. So how is it that my gold isn't your gold until it changes custodianship? The fact that that problem was soluble at a distributed level took me completely by surprise. Did not see the technology, did not understand that it was imminent. And when I found out about it, my thought about it back then wasn't as money. It was, oh my gosh, someone has figured out how to port the constraints of the physical world into the digital layer. And therefore, we can set about rebuilding everything that we know to be possible, because the physical world is a proof that what we see in front of us, bottles, glasses, microphones, are real.
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea that you could take physical law, come up with a digital form of it, and then have that govern a system so that you can't create, you can't counterfeit, you can't have a central bank come in and execute a seigniorage play against your currency. All of those things had me in mind of how do we decamp the world of the physical and move into the world of data, of bits, of electrons, rather than the world of atoms. And only recently did I come in contact with the Bitcoin universe by mumbling, or I guess I also had Vitalik of Ethereum fame on my podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And many Bitcoiners responded to that in a way that I had not sort of understood, which is, how dare you talk to charlatans and scoundrels? And
how dare you?
How dare you?
I was one of those.
Were you?
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
I can't remember what I put. I think I probably put something, why are you talking to a scammer?
Really?
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. I'd have to go and dig it out.
It doesn't seem very nice, Peter.
Well, we're not very nice people sometimes. We are actually. Bitcoiners are really nice people.
I can't figure it out, because you guys do seem to be sort of weirdly idealistic and decent, but somehow you appreciate the aesthetic of being a dick.
It's a little bit like it's like your body's own defense system against getting sick. Like you get food poisoning and you're just vilely ill afterwards, coming out of both ends. You wouldn't wish it on your worst enemy, right? And that's your body repelling this thing that it deems to be dangerous to it. And I think for the OG Bitcoiners that have been around since, the 2012 cycle or whatever, I think they've seen, and that's not me, but I know these guys, and I've studied the history of Bitcoin and the various alt cycles that we've done previously, and they've seen so much of it come and go, and just wave after wave of things that promised to do something but then not actually deliver on it, that I think the collective OG Bitcoiner community and then the new Bitcoiners that have added on to that have adopted this stance that is commonly referred to as maximalism, which is the refusal to sort of even entertain that maybe there could be something else out there worthwhile.
Yeah.
But also, we're very protective over this Bitcoin thing because it's a project that's taken 30 years to exist. The previous projects by cypherpunks to try and build this form of digital money, which many failed.
Right.
And finally, we have one that's worked. and it is working.
And it's worth fighting for.
It's worth fighting for. And
Yeah.
and the way people explained it to me, because I made shows about toxicity, saying you need to be nicer, you need to be welcoming people in. But
No, I didn't say that.
oh, no, I did.
I know, but I want to be very clear
Lex Friedman did.
that, yeah, that's the kumbaya love perspective.
Yeah.
I probably have a different perspective.
Well, so I think what it is once you've been in for a while, and like Travis said, you hear the same bullshit over and over again. But once you have your material amount of net wealth in there, you want it protected. It has to be hard.
But
to
that's
change.
talking your book. And it's if the issue is that my net worth is in this object, and now the idea is that object is susceptible to going down or going up, depending upon how people feel about it. I have to ensure that people feel about this in a way that's coincident with my financial goals.
No,
so,
that's a different point. So forget the financial goals. We've had all this stuff with Elon recently, and plenty of us, have said, "Fuck off, sell your Bitcoin. We don't want you here. Like if you're going to cause issues, and we'll take the net loss. We're in this for the long term. This is a multi-year project for us.
Yeah.
It's more about people coming in, trying to centralize the project or trying to influence narratives in a new way. This kind of, you see the meme, I just discovered Bitcoin, I'm here to fix it, that
Right.
kind of thing. And also trying to defend against the basic principles of what we're trying to achieve here, which is just decentralized money and very simple properties, 21 million coins, Bitcoin has to do three things. It has to secure 21 million coins, it has to issue new coins in the process, and it has to allow for censorship-resistant payments. And just protecting that is why people can get quite rabid.
right.
And I think it's kind of interesting. I took a long time to get my head around it, because I think what it comes down to is this idea of learning in public, right? And learning in public when you've got 500 followers is different from 500,000 followers.
That's true, but I don't think that's where I have my differences with you all. In other words, I understand the idea that this is something worth protecting to you.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that this is something that is constantly under attack. It's under attack by people who don't even understand that they're attacking it. Let's assume that we go through all of this, okay? Maybe I have to pass some sort of a written, number 2 pencil bubble quiz. Assume that I get most of the answers right. At that point, what I understand of it is that this system has a bolt-on culture that is necessary potentially in order to get it to function. Like it may be that Bitcoin maximalism is a necessary part of Bitcoin for Bitcoin to work. So assume that that's true.
Mm-hmm.
In which case, it isn't just the protocol from the white paper or whatever. It's in fact a composite. It's like in Judaism, you have written Torah and you have oral Torah. So in a weird way, the culture of Bitcoin is one that is highly idealistic in its interior very often. It's not homogenous. So many different kinds of people live in this ecosystem. But then the crust of it is extremely unpleasant. And the idea that you have to have that kind of a dichotomy present between an idealism because you're trying to do something different and a sort of an armed wing. Let's think of it as the armed wing of the Bitcoiners, right? That's a known way of dividing things. Like Hamas, for example, does a lot of social services in Gaza with hospitals and schools and the like, and they also do firing of rockets. So it's very common to have some sort of idealistic thing coupled to some very aggressive military thing. And I don't see Bitcoin as particularly distinguished in that regard. And it's sad to me in part that the architecture of the coin isn't better so that the culture of the Bitcoiners can be less focused on this issue of attack. And of course, this was one of the problems to begin with, which was, what are we going to do? If this technology works, anyone can create a coin. And if anyone can create a coin, now we have a new problem, which is we've never had more than a handful of really important currencies before, right? So if you think about, for example, in fiat space, what are the really important liquid currencies? You've got USD, EUR, GBP, maybe you have CHF, JPY. It's, it thins out very, very quickly. Even Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Swiss, these are smaller. And so in part, this problem of the ability to create currencies at will mirrors, if you like, the fact that central bankers can print money at will. And this is one of the problems is that they have the ability to print, and you have to have a culture that stops printing. And so what you guys have figured out is that you have to have a culture that stops printing crypto and not printing it in the level of new Bitcoins, but new coins.
We can't really stop that, though.
But in part, what you're trying to do is you're trying to make it non-profitable.
No, actually, I think what we're trying to do is, if you've been in long enough, you've seen people buy a new coin, make a profit, and then suddenly be in a loss as the rug gets pulled, and then that coin just dies off. Very few have survived multiple cycles. It's more about trying to guide people towards Bitcoin and what's different about it.
Yes and no. I would say that part of it is altruistic, saying, I don't want you to make these mistakes. There is the altruistic aspect of have fun being poor. You're trying to tell somebody you don't have to lose.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you're not going to win as much as if you'd got in 2011, but on the other hand, you don't have to lose. So in a weird way, even the completely charmless epithet have fun being poor or staying poor has a bit of idealism to it. So, yeah. But here you are both talking your book. I mean, you said it yourself, that when your net worth is invested in this object, you have a different feeling about it. And the issue of talking one's book is distinct from warning other people, is distinct from having a preference for Bitcoin over everything else, if for no other reason than its ideology is different. It comes from a mysterious place that we don't yet understand. It's not trying to be smart contracts, although there are things that are bolt-ons and off to the side that may have those properties. So let's agree that there is some standard process by which people discover the world of crypto. They make certain canonical mistakes, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a way in which the community has been through this a million times. People come in at different levels. People come in just wanting to learn. Other people come in saying, don't worry, I've solved everything. And, buy Bruno coin or buy Sally coin or whatever it is, So you create your own. Okay. What I'm much more interested in is where is the really good conversation to be had around crypto in general, Bitcoin in particular, and the relationship between fiat and crypto, between that which is enforced by violence and that which is enforced by math.
Well, a lot of people in the circles I mix in, they don't even entertain the conversation of crypto. They don't even use the word. It's like, no, I'm not in crypto, I'm in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
That's just a bunch of bullshit. And the way I tend to think about it myself, the way I've compartmentalized it is that I consider Bitcoin to be my vault that's protected. It's protected by math, cryptography, and a rabid army of plebs who are, or cyber hornets as Saylor calls them, who are there to, protect Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And then I consider all the other stuff. I think that's me taking a bit of money out of my vault and going to Vegas and going to the casino, just playing the roulette.
See, but this is one of these revelations, which is that you think of this primarily as money.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the ways in which I get into trouble with Bitcoiners is not thinking about this primarily as money.
Okay.
The issue of it being a form of money was important to getting people to adopt distributed computing. And so even if you view it as purely a technology, the fact that that technology was a technology built around money and it could make you rich in traditional terms by understanding it, is a very good example of getting fitness landscapes to cause the adoption of a new technology. So in a certain sense, wealth is its killer app so far. People are always saying, what's the application? Well, I would say one thing is that it's made a lot of people very wealthy. And so
true.
In a weird way, money is the killer app of the blockchain decentralized computing story. But if I continue to think about it as technology, in every other situation, people want to innovate. Mm-hmm. And the great danger in Bitcoin is, no, you can't innovate around this because it's money. Because it's money, it should be resistant to certain kinds of innovation. Then we get into a different discussion about, well, do you have to do something, in the main thread, or can you do something off to the side? And we're not really against innovation. My concern is that there are a huge number of uninteresting conversations to be had around this. And I don't want to waste your time and your listeners' time in one of the rivulets. One of the things that I've learned is that everybody sounds like something. And so whether or not I'm just saying the same thing everybody does when they alight in the Bitcoin universe, or whether I'm saying something different, people will hear it in terms of what they've already heard before.
Yeah, look, I get that. I mean, I was talking to Travis on the way up. Yeah, and even Rich, who's been kind enough to loan us his studio, is that a lot of the conversations are the same. Yeah, and it is good to get different voices on and hear different voices. And I was pestering you because I actually wanted to hear about the things you have to say. Whether or not I agree, it doesn't matter. We can debate those, but it is interesting to get into that. But it's funny that I don't consider this a technical revolution. This to me is a monetary revolution. I absolutely
You don't see this as a technical revolution?
No, I see it as a monetary revolution.
No, I see it as a technical revolution as well.
Yeah, I tell you,
I think it's both.
Yeah.
It seems like it's both. The like shorthand way that I think about this a lot, and as a guy that runs an investment fund for a living, have definitely spent tons of time for years thinking about this. A lot of different use cases for distributed ledger technology. At the moment, money and specifically store of value appears to be the killer app right now. And when you evaluate these different use cases, I like to ask 4 questions. How ready is the tech for the world? How ready is the world for the tech? What do you need decentralization for? And how decentralized is decentralized enough? And in my opinion, and again, not a Bitcoin maximalist, fund doesn't reflect that. But I think Bitcoin more fully and convincingly answers those 4 questions than any other crypto asset in existence today. And that's not to say that there's not a lot of really interesting innovation that's going on down market cap from BTC, and ETH and what's going on with DeFi would be the poster child for that. But within those 4 questions, and specifically, I think, what do you need decentralization for, and how decentralized is decentralized enough? Well, if you need sovereign grade censorship resistance, you got to have a lot of decentralization for that. And that's Bitcoin that exists on 10,000 nodes all across the world. When you look at Ethereum, which is a smart contract platform, decentralized compute, however you want to say it, it's kind of at the furthest end of the spectrum in terms of decentralization for that kind of thing. And then all the way over on the right side is AWS. And man, AWS works amazing, right? And it's cheap. And we use it a lot for our business. And it's like, it's a great product. And if you're going to run, CryptoKitties, there's a question on what you need decentralization for versus just running CryptoKitties on top of AWS. And there's a lot of other competitor smart contract platforms to Ethereum that sit at different places along that spectrum. And I think it's the market is collectively trying to figure out what exactly do we need decentralization for, and how decentralized is decentralized enough.
See, one of the big debates right now between Bitcoin and Ethereum is to do with the consensus mechanism. But that, to me, isn't an argument over technology. That's an argument over the resulting impact it has on the monetary policy. Proof of work being free market and proof of stake being kind of a rebuilding of the system we have now, which can drive wealth inequality and centralizes power, centralizes the rewards from the system. Like anyone can spin up a miner and start earning Bitcoin. But with proof of stake, you already have to be invested. And the wealth is redistributed to the people who have the most money, and the power is. So for me, it definitely is a monetary revolution. There is technical aspects to it.
Yeah, I'm not fighting the idea that it is a monetary revolution in particular. What I'm really trying to say is the first way it strikes me is as a new technology.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that money is part of the adoption scheme is weirdly, to me, part of the technology. I mean, I keep referring to Daniel Suarez's book, Demon and Freedom. And those books talk about a guy, I think, who dies and more or less puts an entire world in motion after his death by using incentive structures and technology. And so in a weird way, this is something that causes humans to adopt it by making them richer.
Hmm.
And by getting humans who are curious and are high in trait openness, if you did a big 5 personality inventory, maybe it requires less of it now. Yes, that wealth building ability is part of the tech. Now, the problem and what makes it unique is that if I disrupt the tech platform, I may disrupt the wealth, and that causes people to want to freeze it in. Now, we have analogs of this. There is, for example, the last line of the Torah says something about, and there never came another that God knew like Moses. And if you think about Islam, there's this concept of bid'ah, or innovation, which is a bad thing. If you innovate after Muhammad, then you've taken this perfect interaction that Muhammad and God have had, and you sully it, And so in a weird way, the idea is we've had our divine moment, and don't touch this thing. And that's not true at a certain level. There's lots of work being done on Bitcoin and around it. But there's another weird way in which, it is really true. Don't touch this thing. And that comes from its monetary nature, not from its technological nature as a pure sort of digital technology, not the meta technology that includes money as its adoption process. Sorry.
Well, if you're competing against gold, we've been using gold to store value for 5,000 years. The incumbent has this like stunning head start on you. And in order to convince increasingly more people to adopt this alternative store of value based on this technology that people don't really understand all that well, I think being slow to change, that's like a feature, not a bug, right? And I'm always reminded of, Peter, you've definitely seen the movie Snatch, right?
Yeah, of course.
You ever seen that movie,
Yeah.
Snatch?
Guy Ritchie.
Yeah. Anyways, one of my all-time favorite movies. And this Russian mobster sells this gun to one of the main characters. And he hands it to him. It's this like enormous old-looking revolver. And the guy goes, a little heavy, isn't it? And the Russian mobster goes, heavy is good. Heavy is reliable. And like in a lot of ways, that's how I think of like Bitcoin as it changes on the main chain. Like it just needs to, if it's going to compete against gold, people need to understand that it's going to be the same. It's just really hard to change. Yeah.
And
Okay.
I think some of the competing cryptocurrencies, they're making trade-offs which might sound like it's a better technology. I get trolled all the time. I'm into the boomer coin. Bitcoin's the boomer coin. It's slow, blah, blah, blah. And what I don't think they understand is the properties that make it the best form of money. So if you make we went through the scaling wars. We had this war, and Bitcoin won. And the reason it won is because the trade-offs aren't worth it. When you went for bigger blocks, you further centralize the project. If you try and be faster, you further centralize the projects. So I'm not opposed. I think a lot of Bitcoiners wouldn't be opposed to if a better Bitcoin comes, but there just isn't.
Well, but it's also less. Actually, I don't really believe that. I really believe at some level that when you have your wealth bound up in this thing, you have multiple feelings about it, right? And one of the feelings is I want to get richer, right? And so if there was some opportunity to have a much better decentralized form of money and smart contracts and all this stuff, and it was going to obliterate your wealth, you wouldn't be indifferent to it.
But you could put your money easily into that.
Maybe, but maybe you're slow to figure it out because you're a big Bitcoin maximalist and you spent the first 4 years of its life, whatever this new thing is, talking about it as shitcoin. Okay.
But, yeah.
What I'm trying to get at is let's cut the crap.
All right.
Right. So, the fact is we have an asset. It's making people richer. In a weird way, they're both philosophical about it. They're also disingenuous about it. Then you have the people coming in from outside. They are both knowledgeable about things other than Bitcoin, and they're also posers. And they both want to change the world, and they both want to rip people off. Right. All of these things are going on. And I want to have the conversation after all of the typical foreplay.
Okay.
Right? So all of the foreplay has to do about, no, we don't really mean this. We may appear this way, but we're actually trying to do something. And if you get to know it, whatever, doesn't matter. The more interesting thing to me is this technology and this new form of money is really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's new and it means something. And what I want to get to is, well, where are we really headed? And what does it do? And is this really a store of freedom? We talk about a store of value, but is this really an effective store of freedom? If the world's major governments decide that they can't stop the technology, but they can cause the penalties to be very high, just the way we do for counterfeiting.
Counterfeiting
Fiat currency.
by the populace, not by the government, because
Right.
the government counterfeits.
Well, the government prints.
It's counterfeiting.
No, it's not. It's retaining a right to transfer wealth by printing fiat currency.
I think they're counterfeiting.
They're counterfeiting.
I think the government counterfeits
What
currency
does that
when they
mean?
print it. Because it's no different to if I was to create a machine to print money.
No, I mean the definition of counterfeiting is like, making fake money, and the government, part of its role is it gets to create real
Government
money.
creates, or if you like, just to riff off this, the government creates a fake reality, if that's what you want to call.
Yeah. But they get
civics.
to. They get to print their way out of
All
mistakes.
right. So
We
now
don't.
the idea is that you have civics as fake,
Yeah.
right? Okay. So we have a fake democracy. We have a fake military that deals out real death. I don't know where we're going with this. In other words, I may be your ally in saying I can't stand the government's
Mhm.
right to print money and claim that it's engaging in stimulus or relief or, lubricating the economy or who knows what. Right? You're transferring wealth by diluting.
Yeah,
Okay?
but I just consider it legalized counterfeiting.
But you just said you have to say legalized.
Yeah, like I'm just saying, it's the exact same app. If I could create perfect notes,
Should we call tax theft?
I think there's certainly people who are listening who want me to say that.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to say, which
Yeah.
is, this is the problem I have with all of these conversations.
I'm not an anarchist though.
Whatever. But we get into these things where we just have these typical well-worn conversations about things like, is printing money counterfeiting? You know as well as I do that it is if you believe governments are legitimate, then they're retaining a right over their fiat currency to make more of it, diluting people in the process, right? So they're going to devalue it through the mechanism of seigniorage.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we can say seigniorage and we're not going to get upset, but if you want to say counterfeiting, I'm going to sit there and say, well, what's the dictionary definition? If a government counterfeits in its own currency, I agree that if you start printing euros and you're the United States, then you've got a different issue. But does the United States have the right to print US dollars if it enforces its currency by violence? Yes, it calls counterfeiting what it does done by anyone who is not it.
There we go. I like that. I like that.
Okay.
Yeah, but my point being is they have the right to print their way out of their mistakes, and we don't.
That's right.
Yeah. So okay, let's do it a different way then. Shall we theorize the impact of the growth in Bitcoin? If it just continues to grow, what will the impact be? Rather than debate whether tax is theft and yada yada, theorize where it goes. Then what is the actual impact?
Well, at some point, crypto gets big enough that our governments who issue fiat currency are going to want a do-over.
Mm-hmm.
And that scares the crap out of me. Because the number one ploy will be to say, if we catch you transacting in this, we're going to make your life hell. And we're not going to catch all of you. Right? If you decide that you're going to print a dollar bill on your home printer, the odds that we're going to catch you are very, very low. But we're going to make the penalty very, very high so you don't start experimenting with this. All right, well, that's what you're going to start to see. You're going to start to see draconian penalties for doing things that are difficult to stop using crypto if we are not careful.
What do you think the likelihood is of that outcome?
Depends. I mean, there are a lot of ways that the Bitcoin story goes south in a very dangerous way. And
by south, you mean like Bitcoin fails, or you mean like south, like it gets so big that
we don't know. This is a novel object.
Mm-hmm.
And part of what makes it exciting is novelty. Now, when you hear many people talking about Bitcoin, they will talk about it as if its past will be its future. The most remarkable thing about Bitcoin, by far, is every day I check it and it's not zero against the US dollar. And I think this thing is a miracle. And literally,
Lindy effect. People love that word in Bitcoin.
Is that right?
Yeah. Just means it's been around.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how impressed I am every day that it's not at zero. It's just one more day, this thing, which the prize for taking this thing down is enormous. Effectively, it's offering a bounty. And it hasn't happened, even after like the Mount Gox, and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It has been very durable. And that's one of the reasons why it has a very stable following of people who are fanatical, because everybody wants to take it down. I mean, you think George Soros wouldn't enjoy speculating against Bitcoin and making billions and showing up the community?
He's actually been investing in the asset class. He's actually gone the other way. But
well, I'm just
sure. Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
How much fun to have all the Bitcoiners in your back pocket because you skin them alive. Now, that world in which Bitcoin continues to exist has to reconcile with itself with the fact that Bitcoin hasn't been exposed to most things that can happen. Bitcoin has happened during a period of relative quiet in terms of the world's, let's say, military engagements. It has taken place in a period of relative technological stagnation. I don't know how Bitcoin behaves more generally, or what happens when it gets close to its 21 million ceiling, or anything. I don't know how it will continue to deal with its challenges. Now, it's got a large number of years where it hasn't fallen apart. But no, this is a dangerous object. To your point about gold, we know a lot more about gold. I mean,
dangerous in what way though? What, dangerous as a threat to government?
Well, let's think about gold, the US dollar, and Bitcoin in the same terms.
Yeah.
Okay. Gold comes not only from physics, but from violent physics. It doesn't just come from stars. It comes from like collisions and explosions of stars. It's very hard to make gold.
Mm-hmm.
Fiat comes from a printing press and the threat of violence. So we've got gold that comes from violent engagements of stars. We've got USD, which comes from the full faith and violence of the US government.
Mm-hmm.
And we have Bitcoin that comes from what?
Peaceful revolution. Come on. You're not reading it, Carters?
It comes from elliptic curves. It comes from math. And in a weird way, that shift towards number theory, it's to make sure that you have a form of money that reveals a potential undoing. If there's a huge change in quantum computing or cryptography, or we come to understand that there's a back door, if we have some change, for example, in physics, maybe we can make gold atoms out of helium and hydrogen. I don't know. Potentially you always have the problem of a central bank goes hyperinflationary and just runs the printing presses morning, noon, and night. All of these things have a problem, because if you think about the traditional definition of money, we have store of value and medium of exchange and unit of account, all these things. It may be that there really isn't any good example of money.
Well, they're all relative to each other.
Right? That's the point.
And depending on what you're measuring it on.
Well, but one of the issues is, does the volatility of the exchange rate, if it's volatile enough, actually function as a threat to store of value, even assuming there's no drift of the median exchange rate?
It's only been volatile to the upside over any kind of like meaningful amount of time, right?
Well, this is the point. You have the long-term trend, and so you can detrend it. You can subtract off the trend and just say, what is its propensity of the exchange rate? Can we remember it's not Bitcoin, it's the exchange rate of Bitcoin that has the volatility to it. So then you can ask, okay, well, how volatile is this asset on an annualized basis? It's pretty volatile. Now, that means that even if the middle point, however you want to define it, doesn't move that much, if I get in when it's very high and then it mean reverts and it goes way below, that is not going to be a great store of value for me based on my entry points and my exit points.
Mm-hmm.
And so in part, Bitcoin, its volatility is part of a threat to its use as money.
I don't
yeah.
think you can't go from zero to, gold's worth $10 trillion in aggregate. You can't go from 0 to 10 trillion without volatility in the price.
But imagine, for example, that with gold, imagine a new element. I don't know, preciousium. Okay, so preciosium transacts where it can be $5, the exchange rate of 5 and 5,000, and it doesn't drift relative to USD. Okay, just imagine. But it really varies within that range between 5 and 5,000. That's a tough store of value, even if you believe in some sense that it doesn't drift. It means that where you enter and where you exit really make a difference.
But the market is pricing in a new global money. And as Travis said, that you can't go from 0 to 1, 5, 10 trillion over 10 years, 12 years without some volatility.
Well, but again, do you want it to be volatile? Do you want, in some sense, if I think about 3 different universes, I have the universe of, let's say, consumer prices, okay? I have the universe of fiat currencies, and I have the universe of crypto.
Mm-hmm.
So if those are 3 vertices of a triangle, then the edges of the triangle are all exchange rates. Even the price of a consumer good in fiat currency is really an exchange rate, right? How many pairs of tennis shoes? Okay. What should those legs look like if fiat currency is itself garbage?
Well, this is all relative again.
Things are just going to keep getting more expensive, right? Isn't that the answer?
Well, so that was my point, is that assume that the dollar, for example, has a property that with respect to consumer prices, that it has low variation with respect to consumer prices, but it has a high propensity to be inflated away. Just assume that that's true for the moment. And then assume that Bitcoin had a low propensity to be inflated away, but had extremely high volatility with both of the other objects because they both have low volatility relative to each other.
Mm-hmm.
So in some sense, you would have one vertex being a better traditional store of value, but subject to sky-high volatility. And you have the other thing being a better medium of exchange with respect to short-term fluctuation, but being a very poor store of value over a long term. Okay.
But that's how we use money, right?
Yeah, so this is this view that gold is good at storing value over time, but not space.
Mm-hmm.
And fiat currency is good at storing value over space, but not time. And Bitcoin is superior at both because it's instantly transferable anywhere in the world, really cheap, and it has the properties to store value very, very well. In Austrian economics terms, it's the hardest money in human history. And to your earlier point, the world hasn't actually ever had anything like it before. But there's like a qualitative framework around assessing potential stores of value that's been around for a long time, right? Gold, 5,000 years. Before gold, we're using salt, seashells, really big, heavy rocks. And there's a reason that, like, when gold came along, over time, humans decided collectively that gold is better at storing value than salt. And it's like an Austrian economics framework: hard money versus soft, sound versus unsound, the 6 characteristics of money: durable, divisible, portable, uniform, accepted, scarce. And when you line salt up next to gold, gold's definitely the winner there. And then when you put Bitcoin up next to gold, you can make a real credible claim that Bitcoin is superior in 5 out of 6 of those characteristics. And it's really just acceptability, given that gold is like not really the foundation of the global financial system, but like kind of, because central banks hold a lot of it. Bitcoin's made pretty good headways in terms of acceptability versus a 5,000-year-old asset in 12 years.
Great. I mean, it's something wildly new, super exciting.
Mm-hmm.
But what do you guys really want to talk about? No, seriously, because there's some level at which
Well-
I don't want to. Wait, just 1 second. I don't want to talk about Austrian economics one more time. And I don't want to talk about mediums of exchange and units of account one more time. And I don't want to talk about central bankers one more time. You guys want to talk about something.
Well, we talk about this stuff every week.
Yeah.
You know, you're a different voice. You have a lot of conversations with other people.
Yeah.
You meet a lot of people. I want to know what you think. Where are the areas you want to get into? What is interesting you in Bitcoin? Like, what are the topics where you're like, what is it making you think? You know, in terms of threats, opportunity. You're definitely interested. I know you see the threat of inflation, and I know you recommend.
I see the threat of abundance. I hate abundance. Everybody in my world just goes crazy for abundance. They go to Burning Man one day a year or 1 week a year, and then they have these experiences, right? And they say, oh my God, it was so beautiful. Everybody was gifting. Oh, I wish Burning Man could be 365 days a year. And there's a relationship at Burning Man between Black Rock City, right? And what they call the default world. Have you been?
I
You
haven't.
been?
I've heard
Okay.
good things.
All right. So they say, welcome home. This has always been your home. And you've left the default world. And the default world is fiat mediated, right? And so there's a weird way in which Bitcoin and Black Rock City are like real things. They're durable. They've been doing the Black Rock City for quite some time, since it was on Baker Beach. And there's a relationship between the old world, that is fiat currency or the default world, and Bitcoin or Burning Man, because Burning Man couldn't exist without the default world. You spend 51 weeks a year earning in the default world to blow it on 1 week at Burning Man, right? There's all that treasure that gets trucked into the desert came from somewhere. And in a certain way, at some level, fiat currency is inextricably intertwined with Bitcoin and with crypto in a way that's uncomfortable, because, of course, the Black Rock City folks want to do away with the default world. They want to live in Black Rock City.
Isn't that a barter economy when you're there?
Pardon me? There's no thing that looks like an economy once you're in Burning Man.
Isn't it like exchanging of things, though?
You gift things. You
gift
don't
things.
expect.
So it's a
Sorry, I lost the comparison to Bitcoin through that.
Oh, that you have worlds that feel free of the old, but they're actually inextricably connected.
yeah.
See, when people have their wealth in Bitcoin, and then you see them clutching their heads in pain, as some were doing recently.
I don't know. Some of us were laughing.
Some people were talking about why don't some of the people who have mediated this crash understand the toll in human lives? I just put everything I had into this asset. Blah
Well,
blah
they're
blah.
an idiot.
Oh, should we tell them that?
Well, I think I just did.
Okay.
I mean, look, there was two kinds of reactions to what happened over the week. That week, there were the Bitcoiners who just laughed, and there's the shitcoiners who own Bitcoin who were devastated.
No, the Bitcoiners didn't just laugh.
A lot of the ones I know did.
That's not what
Travis didn't, because he's
No,
a
a lot of
trader.
people didn't laugh.
a lot of people did laugh though.
A lot of people laughed, and a lot of people didn't laugh.
Should we talk about the ones who did first,
Sure,
and talk about why they did?
we should do that. But again, I'm put in mind the fact that you asked a question, which is, what is the relationship of Black Rock City and Bitcoin? And my comment is that there's an uncomfortable relationship to the outside world that you're trying to disintermediate, and the fact that you are dependent in some sense on that outside world.
Big time. Yeah.
Right. And so my claim, which was supposed to be uncomfortable, but hey, maybe Bitcoiners are all just geniuses and the rest of us are all fucking idiots, is that it wasn't universally seen as fun.
Of course not. Yeah.
Right. It just wasn't. And it bothers me that we're going to retcon this and say, oh yeah, real Bitcoiners didn't even bother. They didn't even notice.
Didn't
They don't
flinch.
even.
No.
They didn't flinch.
Look, I'm being
wasn't the point
I'm being slightly facetious, but the point I'm trying to make is the overall narrative of what happened over the week, right? Bitcoin's had a great year, but Bitcoin, as we said, it's meant to be decentralized, and decentralization isn't just a decentralization of the tech; it's a decentralization of the power. If you look at how the process works for doing upgrades to Bitcoin, the
Yeah.
BIP process, the review process, the social consensus that's reached, the test, the building of the code, the testing of the code, the deployment, the signaling for the code. That is a beautifully designed, decentralized process to ensure it's hard to change, and when changes come, they're necessary and they're big and important upgrades to the system. What we had was a centralization of power and influence over narrative and market prices, which came essentially a lot from Elon Musk, who's been kind of schizophrenically changing his opinions on Bitcoin. And that a lot of Bitcoiners don't like that because it's too much power and concentration.
Who gave him this power?
Well, he took it.
He
Yeah.
took it.
Yeah. I
He
mean,
bought he bought $1.5 billion.
well,
Yeah,
actually,
maybe, but
no,
you
no.
got
In
the-
fairness, Travis, we also gave it to him because I mean, myself, I was like celebrating. This is amazing. Tesla involved. This is going to be great because other companies are going to think about it. I now reflect on that as okay. We go through learning journeys with anything. I reflect on it and go, actually, that was wrong because there was too much power in the hands of somebody who's highly influential, also erratic, and he can influence the narrative, which will happen. And he's also got all other weird incentive structures going on with his business and carbon credits. And that's why it was kind of like, actually, this would be better if he went. It's like the meme that came out. It was like this car on a road. Did you see it? It's like the car can go two ways, and the sign says, number go up or tell a billionaire to fuck off. And the car's going that way. And the point being is, Bitcoiners will tell him to fuck off. It doesn't matter if you're Elon Musk or Travis, Pete, Eric, whoever. We don't want
But you
concentration of
partially
power.
got into trouble because you forgot your own culture.
How do you mean?
Super sexy man with rockets,
Yeah.
smartest man on earth, et cetera, coolest dude ever, embraces Bitcoin. It's like,
Mhm.
oh, you see, Mom?
Yeah, no.
I told you this was going to be something.
Yeah, we all got excited.
Big time.
Right?
It's a weird balance of anti-fragility, which I think a lot of Bitcoiners would argue is one of Bitcoin's greatest properties, where you have periods of time where a single individual or a group or an organization moves into a position where they can have an outsized influence on, price or potentially the direction of the project, like let's say in the block debate in 2017. And, I think the Bitcoiners have this long storied history of these back and forths towards like, well, we appreciate that somebody is shining a light on why this is important, but at the same time, deeply understanding that decentralization is one of the most critical.
You don't have a
components.
long storied history. You just don't. I mean, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm 55 years old, and if I know somebody for the length of time that Bitcoin has been on Earth, I don't consider them an old friend.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a fair point.
Great point.
Next point. When you guys were going through your loving Elon phase, because Elon smiled and that gave legitimacy, it spoke to me about things we don't like to talk about, which is I've taken so much shit for holding this asset that's made me rich. It feels wonderful.
Yeah, it was
that
validation.
I understand that. But that broke your rule, right? We don't trust, we validate.
Mm-hmm.
Who did the validation? Some outside force. You allowed,
Not
on
me.
average,
Yeah.
the community, which isn't a community. You don't understand when nobody speaks for Bitcoin. Blah, blah, blah.
It is a community.
Okay. Allowed yourselves to get suckered
Mm-hmm.
by validation. Now, one of the things I will say in my own defense, because I'm the only one defending me here, right?
You did
is-
as well.
We love you, by the way.
No,
You know that, right? I mean,
I've been
Love
super
your
excited. I've been super excited to do this. And we are natural allies, and this will all work
Yeah.
out in the end.
But you watch
However,
your step. If you put a foot wrong, we'll fucking come after you.
which is why I'm introducing Eric Coin. What I was going to say is that I didn't allow you guys to push me off Bitcoin when you're being dicks, and I'm not going to abandon Bitcoin because its number goes down. And
Yeah.
so from my perspective, I'm just looking at this laughing, no offense,
Mhm.
which is I got your stuff better than you did,
Well,
which is don't suck up to the billionaire.
Well, we can't be absolute about this. There were plenty of people when Elon came in, but plenty of, you've heard of the plebs, plenty of those were like, not sure, not sure. And you know what? And I think it's made everyone a bit cautious now. Even, I would say, since this episode, even Michael Saylor is now being watched with a different eye. And like, I don't mind saying that. I was saying to him, I think there is that kind of nervousness now. And I also think one of the things with the Elon thing is like, he's getting a lot of pressure. I think it's the reason he's getting a lot of pressure because he's being tested now. Like, you're either in properly or piss
Well, what
off.
he did was just wrong.
Yeah, of course.
And it was wrong at multiple levels.
Well, what do you think he did wrong? Because
one thing I did wrong is that he explains why he's backing away from this based on information that he had when he was backing into it.
Yeah.
Huge question.
So,
around
my feeling is, come on, cut the crap.
What do you think happened?
Who cares? I mean, here's my problem. I don't think Elon is really central to the Bitcoin story. I just don't.
Agreed.
Okay. I think that
You think he's pushing away from it?
No.
Yeah.
I think that the key thing is you got to free your mind of Elon, right? You have to appreciate Elon for all the wonderful things that he is, and you have to recognize that it's counterbalanced by all the things that he is that you wish he wasn't, right? And in so doing, he is like the rest of us, right? Now, what I get is that Bitcoin is bigger than any particular person. It doesn't really belong. It's decentralized. Okay, that's its ethos. Within that ethos, I think Elon is a guy working out his own problems from being too famous and under too much scrutiny. And so he likes to say random stuff. He likes to, his comment that the world takes the path that is maximally entertaining. Right? It's pure chaotic neutral, right? At some level. Yeah. And so in a weird way, he's not your hero. He's not your villain. I don't think he's done with Bitcoin. My sense of it is that he's going to come back into the Bitcoin universe. What happened with Tesla being forward-thinking enough to accept Bitcoin immediately resulted in Tesla not being forward enough to accept Bitcoin because it wasn't ready. And in so doing,
it wasn't ready?
Yeah.
What do you mean it wasn't ready?
My belief is that there's a reason that so few large ticket items advertise that they are purchasable simply in Bitcoin for a reason. You're talking about something with volatility properties that if it comes in contact with the normal financial universe are going to lead to enormous swings. If you hold a lot of Bitcoin on your balance sheet, you've got a situation if you're going to be priced in a numeraire like USD.
It's completely conjecture on my part, but I would guess that Tesla sold about 40 Teslas for Bitcoin. Like it just,
who knows?
It's a guess, but there's Gresham's law. I mean, bad money drives out good. You spend the money that's not very good at being money, and you hoard the money that's good at being money.
I'm trying to get the idea that when you're first out of the blocks to try to do something big like this, you find out all the reasons why nobody else has done it. Right? So, you announce something, you get all the plaudits, people say, wow, great job. And then you actually have to manage the situation. And so I remember thinking, and maybe this wasn't a very elevated thought, I wonder how long that's going to last. Right?
Accepting Bitcoin for payment for Teslas, plus buying $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin on a publicly traded company's balance sheet, if you're going to, that's about 1% impactful accepting Bitcoin and 99% impactful that he put it on his balance sheet.
Yes, but my feeling is it was all coming from something that wasn't very well thought out. And that my point wasn't about which has more impact. My thought was, maybe it's just dumb, but I heard Tesla's accepting Bitcoin and I thought, so cool. That was my first reaction. My second question was, I wonder how long that's going to last.
Yeah, but the 180 with a press release based on energy uses and then energy use becoming the narrative.
Yeah, but maybe the idea is that what he really thought about was that he'd spent so much time on a green narrative with a car company, he hadn't figured out how Like maybe he had rejected the idea that Bitcoin wasn't green enough. And then he found that that was going to be too difficult. Who knows?
Who knows?
But again,
Well, yeah, it could be
my
tapped.
question is, I really want to talk to Elon about interplanetary stuff and physics.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not that interested in talking to Elon about crypto unless he's going to do something huge using his wealth or his brain. But it just, again, I get back to this. I'm somewhat bored of the standard conversations we can have around this. Like, what is it that you guys want to do that's next level and awesome? And that's a great, I feel like the Bitcoin community is one of the best communities to take on the future.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm much more interested about what a bunch of pirates want to do. I've got a huge number of rich, idealistic pirates.
Mm-hmm.
That should be the most riveting thing. That's one of the reasons that I was dying to do your show when you asked me. We got rich, smart, heterodox, idealistic, iconoclastic pirates.
Yep.
Okay, what are we doing?
We're going to build a country.
Are we?
Maybe.
Okay.
We find the right island.
We started with money.
We got enough of it.
There is this turn of phrase of like, save the money, save the world. Fix the money, fix the world.
I understand that.
And I
So
think
right now I have things I want to fix right now.
What do you want to fix? I'll tell you how Bitcoin fixes it.
Right, my relationship with my second cousin. Bitcoin fixes
Yeah.
everything. Okay, what really is going on for me is sense making.
The
What do you
interesting.
mean? Sorry, what do you mean by that?
We used to have newspapers. We used to have universities. We used to have scholars.
But we're turning everything on its head right now.
You Bitcoin or we? the
No,
humans?
everybody is. Like
Yeah.
everybody's questioning everything, questioning the media, questioning education, questioning politics, everything is being rethought out right now.
Except for things like honey badgers, which just don't care. Right? And Bitcoin is supposed to be like a honey badger.
I think they care first. I think
You think honey badgers care the most?
Well, no, just about certain things. It's like they're the first ones. They were the first ones that I saw, who were they were trashing the media, they were trashing politics, they trash everything. Basically, they don't trust verify. They don't trust vaccines. Yeah, not everyone.
Who?
It's a spectrum.
Who's they?
Bitcoiners generally.
Bitcoin is generally, and it's a spectrum, Certainly more on the right or right-leaning or libertarian. There are some on the left, but they keep quiet because they get attacked for being socialist. But certainly they see that you have to change the money to fix a lot of these problems. You can the root of a lot of these problems is the money, the cheap credit.
Okay.
You fix that money, you fix a lot of these problems. I mean, you've talked about it a lot, about the degradation of society.
Yeah.
The
Embedded growth obligation. I'm all over this action. We are supposed to be natural allies.
I
It's
agree
just
with
that the idea is that I'm supposed to put laser eyes in my profile photo, and I'm supposed to say I'm a maximalist now, as if I've touched a pot or I'm some kind of a Stepford wife. F that.
No, nobody's asking.
But
to do
no,
that.
Have you got laser eyes, Travis?
I took mine off.
Yeah,
when
I
we
took
hit
mine
an
off.
all-time high.
Okay. Well, whatever. It doesn't matter.
No, I hear you.
Yeah.
If I was going to try and attempt to bridge a lot of the things that I've heard you talk about in various different capacities, I would bring up this concept called the trust revolution that I've talked about for a while, and it's something that initially attracted me to this asset class and this technology in 2017 when I was first going down the rabbit hole. And it's actually stunning how much it's been exacerbated since then. But we have seen unchecked power failing society at multiple levels, and that is getting worse, not better. And society is recoiling from that to an increasing degree. And younger generations feel this more acutely than older generations. I think millennials and Gen Z are generations that think Wall Street is rigged, politicians are crooked, and big tech takes your data and they do shitty stuff with it, or they don't keep it safe, or they use it to make themselves the richest people in the world, and they don't return that value back. And there's commonalities across, and you can ask the question like, when did this start? And I think you could make the case that it started when in 2001 on the back of 9/11, when we went over in the Middle East and tens of thousands of lives were lost on the American side and many more on the other side. $10 trillion were spent. And what we went over there for in the first place never ended up happening. And there was a question about why that happened. And then it was exacerbated in 2008 on the back of the financial crisis when you damn near blew the whole world up. Nobody went to jail. Everybody, the bankers were all fine. And then you fast forward to Brexit and Donald Trump. And why did those two things happen on the other side of the world within a handful of months of one another, but with like sort of like the exact same underlying drivers? And then you just had hit after hit, NSA spying, Black Lives Matter, the Me Too movement.
It's all coming apart.
Harvey Weinstein, like all of these things. And society is recoiling from,
but we're not
power tends to corrupt and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
And the question is, what decentralized power, what does that do?
So I think
We don't know.
I think distributed ledger technology can serve as the technological platform to drive societal change for the good, in that it can start to dismantle these centralized powers that are failing the people. And money's a great place to start with that. And it obviously dovetails into the way our political system is in the United States right now, which is, I mean, I think as broken as it's been since, I don't know, maybe the Civil War. I don't know.
Well, you know, because you and Brett tried to make an attempt on it and you became censored.
Yeah, well, I didn't believe Brett's attempt would work, but I was willing to throw my name behind him because it shows why we can't have nice things.
Well, the most interesting thing about that was the censoring of it.
Exactly.
Like
right.
What?
Well, that was the whole point, is that as soon as you have something that's completely non-threatening, like bipartisanship should be threatening to no one. Of course, it has to be censored because that's what's really threatening, right? So if you had stable money and you had bipartisanship and you had a green world that was much less dependent on fossil fuels, what would power do, right? I mean, it would just spy on you, on your relationships with your ex-boyfriend on Facebook, or I don't know what it would do. So we have a situation whereby, real power, which is very hard to locate and find out who's behind it, has, I think, has been decreasing. But everybody else's power has been decreasing at an accelerated rate to that. So I believe that our central shadowy powers still exist, but they aren't that powerful. What's happened is that everyone else has gotten incredibly weakened. And Bitcoin is one of the few things as a community that's gotten stronger. And so the really interesting question is, okay, well, what do you guys want to do? Is just hang on for dear life and buy a Lambo at some point? Is that what we're doing, or are we taking on nation states? What's the plan here? There is no plan.
It's not binary.
We don't need a plan.
It's not binary.
What?
It's not binary. We can get Lambos and take them on.
Well, but you're taking them on less. I'm really excited. I mean, you have to appreciate. I'm really excited about not dying. Right? Not dying is one of the things that excites me the most.
Okay.
And
are you getting cryogenically frozen?
Not that kind of not dying.
Okay.
You have kids?
I have 2.
All right. That kind of not dying.
Okay.
Right? So my feeling is I want my lineage not to have a death sentence. And being trapped on a thermonuclear planet with lunatics with fingers on the button is not my idea of a good time. So I want out of that. And most determinedly, I want off this planet.
So you want to go to Mars?
No.
Where do you want to go?
Mars and the moon are starter planets, but there are only 2 of them.
Is Elon going to give you a seat?
No, he's not going to give me. I don't know Elon.
Oh, I thought you might be able to apologize to him for me because I kind of need a seat.
He's giving me your seat.
He's giving you my seat. Fucker.
No, I mean, I think what we need to do is focus on physics.
Okay.
And I keep saying to you guys, okay, you're getting so rich, number go up. When are we doing physics? When are we actually going to invest in the ability to escape this planet? No, that's my
Yeah.
pet thing, which is that
That's your-
I want humans to survive.
Yeah. Okay. That's not my pet thing.
Yeah, you don't care.
I know, I do, but I just think it's not going to happen in my lifetime. Probably not happen in my kids' lifetime. It's not my focus of attention. My focus of attention is,
You are aware that there are UFOs.
yeah, this is a good timing, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you should rescale your time horizons.
Are you a UFO?
Everyone is.
You are. Well, look, I
Sorry,
just
are you not?
I just don't know. I'm just not sure.
Oh, you should verify. Don't trust me.
Well, listen, look, but I'm in more simple terms. I'm not I'm a bit of a moron, really, and I don't have a university degree, and all I can think about are the things that are close to me, which is me.
So here
my
you are
kids, my
bragging that
family.
you weren't dumb enough to invest in a university degree, and you're doing it through false humility.
I'm a dropout. I'm a university
Peter, you're
dropout.
really pissing me off.
I'm
with
a
your
university
arrogance on this.
dropout. I am actually a university dropout. I'm good. I have to when I get a smart person, I have to bring someone smart like Travis to help me. Listen, look, I have to think close to me and what's important to me. And
Yeah.
the things that are close and important to me is me and my family. What's going to happen to the UK over the next 10, 20 years? Is it going to see a similar? Well, it is seeing a similar societal breakdown as the US happens. Where do I want to live? Where do I want to be? What's going to give me freedom? I actually start from a very selfish point. What is best for me and best for my family? Where should I live? Actually, quite like look at Texas at the moment, though. But by the by, and then what can I do to help others? And I think in terms of this, in terms of what we do with Bitcoin, it's just trying to drive some form of choice and financial freedom, some kind of separation from this system, which is unfair. Like my producer, you know the website WTF71 because you like it. My producer Ben worked on that. I know that what we've seen is like a lot of my friends would be traditionally middle class now don't really have much disposable income at the end of each month.
Yeah, no kidding.
And we're seeing so I see Bitcoin as a chance to.
So is it a revolution? Is it a financial
It's
revolution?
definitely a monetary revolution.
Okay.
But I don't understand how it's going to play out because we're building something new here. It's a form of money we've never had before, completely decentralized, completely digital. We're trying to decentralize power. I mean, we talked about what happened with Elon earlier. We go through learning lessons. 2017 was a scaling war. We learned that forks aren't popular. We learned that big blocks don't work. This year, we've learned that billionaire power isn't good. We keep going through these.
Oh, but you knew that.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
Maybe if I'd thought
You guys
about
made
it
an
through.
exception.
If I'd have rationalized it,
No,
maybe
you made
I
an
had.
exception for a particular billionaire because the particular billionaire showed up with the cachet of cool.
Well, strictly speaking, then we've made the same for Michael Saylor. So we've made it for 2 billionaires and Jack Dorsey, a third billionaire. So it's not just, we've made it for all billionaires.
Well, let's say it's not really about billionaires. It's about acceptance
Yeah, and the validation and the,
and validation.
Yeah.
And I wish look, in part, I'm looking for confidence, right? The confidence of the community. And we talked about the toxicity.
Oh, they're confident.
Oh, no, they're not.
I mean, you could wheel some maximalists out here
Yeah.
that would give you a line that there'd be zero doubt.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about absolutism, right? Totalizing behavior is one of the downfalls of the system. I mean, if we brought somebody out who was completely convinced of Salafist Islam, would they be confident? I mean, they might be willing to blow themselves up, to show their confidence that they had an eternal reward taking out people who were threats, to Islam. I don't know.
What do you mean by confidence then?
Yeah, I don't think I know the difference
Yeah.
between confidence and conviction.
Well, confidence. I think at some point you're looking for a quieter, kind of more deliberative phase of this project. Like the initial phase is,
Initial phase is survival.
well, yes, you say I'm worried about my family. I'm worried about the UK, right? So
Yeah.
the first thing we saw was you're worried about you, and you're worried about your family, which is you extended.
Hmm.
Then we were worried about UK, which is your country.
And my friends put them
And
in
your
there,
friend, okay, so friends next country. So, these are sort of circles of empathy
Yeah. Hmm.
and they're radiating out. And eventually, you care about all of your fellow men. um, there comes to be a point where you're not worried about the Bitcoin. You're not worried about your own personal finances. You're not worried about whether you're right or you're wrong. You've already given yourself your pats on your back. And you start thinking, okay, well, what is this meant to do? What should we be doing? And in part, it's going to be a self-organizing system. And one of the things that we're going to find out is, did this select for people who are able to form institutions themselves? Or are these people who hate institutions so much, we're not going to do that? That's what boomers did, man. Okay, so now, if you form institutions, what will the nature of those institutions be? One possibility, you see, is that Silicon Valley was not good at forming new institutions because it was so good at taking apart old ones. So, the concept of software eating the world meant, why should I create anything in the world if software is just going to eat it later? So the only thing worth doing is doing lightweight software things, because everything that's brick and mortar is going to get blown away. Well, in a certain sense, it may be, here's a good reason why Bitcoin should fail. Bitcoiners, being decentralized, are going to build decentralized things. And those decentralized things will be very good at removing corrupt things that are centralized. And it will be very bad at actually creating the new framework that we need when centralization is necessary. Yeah. Now, that I don't know. That's a story, right? It's not necessarily a true story. Maybe the Bitcoiners are exceptionally good at doing centralized thing when centralization is called for. I don't know.
Well, we're talking in absolutes again. That's the thing about Bitcoin, is there's a range. There is an absolute range. There are those that want complete breakdown of the state and believe in anarchism, which I don't. I don't think it's not whether I theoretically believe it or not. I just don't believe it can happen, because humans want to organize.
You and I have talked about
we talked about this, and we had that conversation because I found, oh God, I'm going to get so much hate for saying this, but I found your conversation with Brett about the monopoly on violence really interesting, because I was trying to weigh up the net of both scenarios, absolute freedom versus state and a monopoly on violence, and like, which is net best. And it depends where you measure it. Like, if you are a complete freedom loving anarchist, you absolutely believe that you should be free and no one should have any right to make any decision over you. Others believe that it's better that we organize and we have agreed collective rules. I find that super interesting, but the spectrum is there. You have got anarchists, and you've got some quiet under the radar socialists who don't want to admit it because they don't want to get called us, and everything in between, so there are a range of people, and they want to do a range of things. But I think the common thing that brings most Bitcoiners together is they want to end what is considered the cancer of central banking. That is, I think that is one
What
of
is the cancer of central bank?
I just think it's the ability to mess with the money, and that where you are, you've seen different impacts. Whether you're in Venezuela, which I've been to see the impact, or whether you're in Lebanon, it's different, or whether you're in Turkey, it's different levels of inflation that's affected it. But I think generally speaking, there is that common understanding, a common agreement that the money printer is too easy to turn on now. There is no check on the power of the money printer. And if we can end that or rein that in, that's going to be better for society.
And what if you had an MMT person across from you?
I've done it. I did it with Stephanie Kelton. I enjoyed having the conversation. I think she's full of shit, but I enjoyed having the conversation.
Okay, but let me just stand in for, since she's not here. Right? So the idea is, no, you don't understand. This is great. We have a problem if we can't print our way out of our own debt. You have to appreciate that this is a feature, not a bug, and that in effect, part of the problem is that if you actually introduce the kind of money that you want to introduce, you're going to be condemning society to cyclical tragedy. That effectively, without central banking and various illusions involving money, we have no way of dampening this cycle, and it's just going to be a cycle of monetary and financial violence that is revisited upon everyone at times of the market's choosing, and not when we can afford it.
Well, if you can't print money, you can't go to war in most cases. And when you look at the collapse of fiat currencies, the vast majority of time they happen because a country went to war and kept going to war and financing wars that it couldn't win. And in that way, trying to remove that capability over a long period of time from governments is like unequivocally a peaceful endeavor.
I've never actually always bought that argument because we've always been pretty much in a perpetual state of war somewhere on this
As
planet.
like we can get back to the nature of humanity
Yeah.
on that, but just looking at the history of fiat currency collapses,
Yeah.
they happen from war.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is I think it's sometimes I feel it's a bit reckless to say, oh, if you fix the money, there won't be any more war.
I agree with that.
Yeah. I think
No,
that's
I mean,
too,
humans,
Yeah.
we're going to do what we do. Although we're killing each other less than we ever have before.
which
so,
is good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So based on what you said, the Stephanie Kelton argument, let me tell you my position. So the position I hold isn't as common in Bitcoiners, or if it is, it's under the radar. I actually think there will be a symbiotic relationship with fiat currencies and Bitcoin forever, and I don't think we will lose the state. Some would disagree. My friend Robert Breedlove, big fan of the sovereign individual, he thinks this, we're on a different path because the logic of violence changes with technology. And I love the arguments, I love the theory, but I think humans organize and they want a bit of protection, want a bit of centralized protection. I think what will happen is we will have potentially some checking on the power with Bitcoin, but you will still have the money printer, but it would have to be used in a more responsible way. So for example, go back to pre-71. I'm not a huge expert on the gold standard, okay? But there was a check on the money, but it didn't stop government being able to have the ability to print money. And I think that symbiotic relationship is needed. I still think you need some form of way of organizing society. Because if you have the big, I spoke to Scott Horton. He was like, you don't want to have the big red button to get rid of government, even though he's a libertarian. He said it'll be chaos. Mm-hmm. But what you can do is, let's say, target making it just a bit smaller. It was Eric Voorhees who told me that, 1% or 5% smaller. And let's just try and check because it's got out of hand now. So if Bitcoin can reduce government by 1% next year, I would call that a huge success. Huge success.
Yeah. I don't know where, I think you and I are in different places.
Well, I expected that.
Yeah. I think I'm worried about general collapse at a level that you're not.
Oh, no, I am.
Okay.
No, I am. But different
Like,
types
like
of collapse.
societal collapse?
Yeah. Beyond. I'm worried right now that what we have is we have a technically demanding planet.
Mm-hmm.
Leadership, peacetime leadership that is completely mismatched with the challenges that we actually face. A potential energy function for violence that is confusing everyone from Steven Pinker on down, because this idea that in general things are as peaceful or more peaceful than they've ever been. And it's just like, wow, this forest hasn't burned for 75 years. Well, what do you think is going to happen when it does burn for the first time in 75 years? It's going to be pretty exciting. So right now, what I think is that we're in a terribly dangerous situation that isn't obviously dangerous. And I'm much more concerned, I think, than you guys are.
No, I definitely. Do you think we're in a fourth turning?
Can I be straight?
Yeah.
I hate this stuff.
Why?
Well, because I've been talking recently about this as snap-to-grid intellectualism, right?
We had this conversation.
And snap-to-grid intellectualism is like, you said something that reminds me of something I heard. And then somebody will repeat something like, strong men make good times make weak men make hard times make strong men. It always is a cycle, right? And then you just think, okay, well, that has some kind of naive hold on my mind, but let me break that for a second. Since 1952, we've had thermonuclear weapons. So don't talk to me about the fourth turning. Like, we can't afford for weak men to make hard times and know that this thing goes on forever.
Yeah.
Things changed. Huge, enormous change occurred.
Mm-hmm.
And so my concern is I'm here to have a different conversation. I don't want to have a Milton Friedman conversation. I don't want to have a Hayekian conversation. I don't want to have an Ayn Rand conversation. I don't want to have an MMT conversation. You guys are something new. I'm here to have a new conversation without fourth turnings. We're in deep shit. You guys are rich. You guys are talking about a new form of money that doesn't have a country to go with it. It's not a chemical element, right? What is the biggest, most beautiful future that you imagine for your families? Like, mine begins with survival.
It's a life raft right now.
I believe me, I hear that.
Yeah, it's
But like, what are we going to disintermediate? Who are we going to disintermediate? What are we doing?
I'm not sure we can change anything, Eric. We can try.
Okay, well, that's the thing.
But my point is, I think we may be on this natural path to collapse, or certain collapses in society. We may be on this natural path to high inflation coming soon. You know, the reason I said the fourth turn, it's not because I believe it's going to happen, but the book's interesting because, same old saying, history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes, right? There is a lot of similarity. Perhaps this is something we can't stop. I don't know. What do you specifically worried about?
All right. I'm worried about a universe where the chairs that are supposed to be reserved for smart people have no smart people sitting in them.
We should probably... Rich, you want to come up here?
Are you referring to people in government? Because we're there right now.
Yeah.
Not just government.
And we definitely got the B team out there right now.
Yeah, I'm not so sure that I'm so thrilled with our tech companies either. And I'm not so sure that I'm thrilled with our university departments. And I'm not so thrilled with our newspapers and our news agencies. Like, more or less, this is what's interesting.
This is the abundance of information.
Decentralization can be the the catalyst across all of those things.
Well, maybe I'll throw some. I just feel like it's almost impossible to have the interesting conversations anymore. I don't even know how to do it, right?
Well,
so in part, my thought is, if you really wanted me to talk and say something that's going to piss off your audience that I find fascinating, it's how do you get a bunch of people who get decentralization to do something centralized, right? That's hard. That's one of the reasons why I'm not totally maximalist in my orientation, right? At some level, you got a bunch of hard-bitten people. We don't trust. Okay, I get it. You don't trust. Okay. You're going to have to trust. And you're going to have to do something centralized if you're going to do something that shows that this was what you guys said it was.
Well, there's a different point here. We're decentralized with power, the platform, the protocol. Okay. You can get them together to centralize to go and do something external for Bitcoin. Just don't make it Bitcoin. Like you can, if you wanted to create for example, libertarians who are anti-politics, I always find that's a bit of a problem. I think if you want to attack
You're
the
not
politics,
a libertarian.
I'm not. I love the ideas theoretically.
Do you like hanging out with libertarians?
I do like hanging out with them. I love them.
Right?
I think the picture they paint of the world is incredible.
That's the problem. It's if it were credible, I'd be more excited. It's incredible.
Well, the problem is, from whatever political position you're in, you believe your story is credible, and you believe others aren't credible. I was just down in El Salvador with a group of people. One of the girls from the US was trying to sell me on Marxism. She thinks it's great. I was like, what?
Marxism.
Yeah, she's trying to sell me on Marxism. The point being is,
if you can sell Marxism, that's you have talent in sales.
No, she didn't do a good job. But the point being is, she hates capitalism, right? Whether you're left, whether you're right, whether you're libertarian anarchist, from where you are, you believe your picture of the world is right and everything else is nonsense. And what we haven't got is enough people trying to see everyone else's version of the world. That's what we don't have. Everyone's like, this is my fucking, it's selfish.
Well, but we're getting back to...
Yeah. What do you think we need to do? Just tell us. When you say centralized, what do you mean? You mean we need to go political, attack the system with our money and change it?
You've got a survival issue. Look, I bore myself on this topic, but this is the end game. We're watching the end game. We can't recognize that it's the end game because we're not we're not in a shooting war with China at the moment.
Yet.
Okay.
It's worth mentioning that Bitcoin is like firmly in the middle of U.S.-China relations.
Mm-hmm.
Firmly.
Okay. We are in a situation in which we've got a dire economic problem, which is communism failed first. Capitalism appears not to be able to get the job done. We don't seem to be able to think much beyond communism versus capitalism. This is what's new, gentlemen. This is what's new. And we're still having old style conversations about what's new.
You're circling. I feel like you want to tell us something, and I'm like,
No, I don't want to tell you anything, because every time I say, I don't want to say anything like that, because if I say, I'm Eric Weinstein and I believe X, Y, and Z, oh, Eric Weinstein thinks.
yeah,
So,
but I don't care about them. I care about these.
that's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is, I would like this to do something new beyond just be a new form of money.
Well,
If it doesn't want to do that, if it just wants to be a new form of money, and it wants to make sure that some people can have hopes and dreams for their children, and you can buy that heart operation you were hoping to get your spouse, or who knows what, great. No arguments with it. I happen to have a different question, which is, does it solve everything? Right? That's really my question. Because if it solves everything, I would know what I would want to go shopping for first. What I would want to go shopping for is a return of sense making and a lineage level solution for human survival. Now, people, they aren't used to these things, right? They say, like, if you had $1 billion, what would you? Oh, I'd buy my great aunt, the house she'd always want. Okay, that's great. I would like to get off this planet. And I would like to get off this planet with options, because as we just saw under COVID, we're running one centralized experiment. And that one centralized experiment is too dangerous with this many stupid people in positions of leadership. And right now, whatever we're selecting for in terms of leadership, we used to have a lot of brutal people on the world stage who are very talented. And we have fewer brutal people on the world stage.
And way less talent.
And way less talent. Right? And so this idea of making everything dumber, we've had 75 years of peace that are coming due. We are out of shape. We have no idea what enforced 75 years of peace within a thermonuclear planet. And that this is coming to an end, right? So my feeling is we've had what I've called the great nap. We've had 75 years to get out of shape, to forget what it means to be a country, why we have centralized institutions. Nobody can even remember why we have journalists, because they used to put their lives on the line to get the story and follow certain sorts of codes. Now they seem to be, a pox.
but you know why that is. Again, that comes down to the money. They don't have the money anymore. I mean, the internet changed things. It changed the economics of journalism. And the economics of entertainment and eyeballs completely changed. It's become about clicks. We know that.
But it's not about clicks. Nothing sells journalism like Jeffrey Epstein stories. And then you find people say, oh, people aren't interested in Jeffrey Epstein stories. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, well, there's random bits of great journalism. There are.
No, but I'm trying to make it. Okay. I am failing. I desperately want to be having a different conversation.
I don't know what the conversation is you want to have.
Let's start from a different perspective.
Okay.
Bitcoin fixes everything. Now, you don't literally believe that. I don't literally believe it. But somebody somehow thinks that this is a good slogan. So the question is, okay, assume that it doesn't fix everything. Assume that Bitcoin fixes a lot. Okay? That is a statement I would be up for. I think you guys would be up for it.
Mm-hmm.
Do we get to a next thing, or does the Bitcoin culture? You see, the tech culture should have fixed science, but it couldn't. Mark Zuckerberg and Yuri Milner, came up with a prize. Let's give $3 million to people who are really good at science. Okay, well, it didn't do very much. Why couldn't science's little brother fix science? Well, in part because the ethos of software is we're here to destroy things that look old. Okay? And in some sense, that's where Bitcoin gets its energy. We're here to destroy things that look old and diseased and flabby. Okay, good on you. Now, what does the lesson of that destruction teach? Well, one thing it taught us in tech was don't build a new university, disintermediate. Do Khan Academy, you know? Okay. So you'll keep learning that lesson over and over and over again, but you never learn that there are some times when you want to go the other direction. This would be, in biology, this would be called regulated expression. There's some times when you want to break something up. There are other times when you want to bring something together. And it's not always the same thing. So my question is, does Bitcoin as a community, which of course isn't a community, but it's so tiresome. Every time you say something, immediately somebody will just come back with, no, you don't understand.
It's because we're decentralized. We all have different opinions.
It's because it's boring. I'm sorry to say it. It's just boring to go through this
go ahead and ask the question.
Okay. Is there a part of this community that understands time to build? Yeah. Time to build the sorts of things that look awful right now, that may become awful with time. They may degrade, right? Maybe you had like Edward R. Murrow and CBS News, and maybe CBS News got horrible. But there was a period of time where CBS News really mattered. Okay? Right now, it's time to build some stuff, to search for solutions to our problems. Problems of economic distribution, post-capitalism, post-communism. What comes after both capitalism and communism? What comes after, what comes in life cycle terms after the pill and reliable paternity tests? What comes in work after telecommuting? We've got 75 years of pent-up questions where we stayed in a stasis, where we're leading archaic lives in general. And everyone knows that our lives don't really make sense anymore. We have archaic money. We have archaic national stories. Okay, it's time for something new. And Bitcoin is a constructive story about destroying the old. But I'm looking for more of a story, given that it's the money, and the reason that money is so important is that it's fungible and allows us to do everything else. Right now, I would like to build a strategy for looking for human survival situations.
Maybe that can only be done in the fiat world. Maybe maybe the story of Bitcoin is the only way to win is not play, radical individualism. You know, a lot of them are anonymous.
Maybe I want to go back to you just made the single best case for going back to something that I don't want to do. I don't want to go back into the fiat world. I want it to be Bitcoin and things of that nature. If the idea is that Bitcoin kind of mentality is so rooted in not centralizing, not having leaders, not, no trust, blah, blah, blah. If the problem is that all of that is co-traveling, that is the overlearned message that comes from having to deal with central bankers, that comes to dealing with lying activists posing as journalists, that comes from looking at citation cartels inside of academics, where people are just so deep in the political economy that they've stopped caring about their subjects. Okay, so I keep hearing this thing is honest. It's, it fixes things. And well, the question is, does it? Is there enough trust in this community? Is there enough that's positive and pro-social that allow the wealth that has accumulated under this to now do beautiful, amazing things?
Yeah, so it sounds like what you're talking about in some cases would be like patronage. Like it would be like, what is the group of Bitcoiners, if they become wealthy by owning a lot of Bitcoin, what some subset of those Bitcoiners are going to decide that getting human species living on other planets is very, very important, and they're going to dedicate resources to trying to push that forward. And I think from a government perspective, I think part of the reason why, and there's plenty of Bitcoin folks that are more on the like theoretical side of things, spend more time thinking about stuff like that have views of what this world is going to look like after Bitcoin kind of quote unquote wins. But I think a lot of us are more focused on what is the path going to look like as Bitcoin gears up to increasingly fight the fight against governments and against fiat currencies, so that there is some amount of struggle to imagine what comes after that, because we don't know what either the timing or the specifics around what that fight's
Maybe
going
we
to look
don't
like.
know either. Maybe we.
Well, I think you don't know. And I also
Yeah.
think, let me be blunt about it. I also feel that people, you know that part of that meme, I just found out about Bitcoin and I'm here to save it, or something like this. Maybe in part, I feel like I've been fighting some fight since the early 1990s.
Mm-hmm.
And then Bitcoin comes around, 2009, 2010, and it's the newcomer on the block. I'm super excited to see it. But I want to go back to fighting the fights that I was fighting in the early 1990s, one of which is about inflation. Let me just be very clear about it. I don't think the economics profession knows how to measure inflation.
Oh, I think they know. I just don't think they want to.
Oh, no, I don't think they know.
Well, the economics, department of the government?
No. The Bureau of Labor Statistics is the ones who are tasked in the United States with publishing the CPI and the variance of CPI. They are trained inside of the university system. I don't think academic economists know how to measure inflation, even theoretically. Like, the two ways in which they would like this number to go down, you see, because when the inflation estimate goes down, that means that tax brackets don't get indexed up. So they get to tax us more, and they get to give us less in terms of entitlements that are cost of living adjusted. Now, the two things that they know to bring down that number, right, that CPI number, that are clearest theoretically, is one, they say it shouldn't be a fixed basket, right? So imagine that we have tea and we have coffee.
Hedonic adjustments.
Well, hang on a second. If the cost of coffee goes way up because there's a frost, let's say, unseasonably cold temperatures in the coffee growing regions, if I'm indifferent between the two, I just switch to tea. And if you give me the money needed to buy back even amounts of coffee and even amounts of tea, I'm going to use almost all of that money not to purchase coffee, which is very expensive. I'm just going to buy tea because I'm equally as happy, and spend the rest on cocaine, let's say, something. And in that world, you're not talking about a cost of living adjustment, because I should be able to say, I only need to compensate you to make you equally happy. I don't need to compensate you to buy back whatever you had previously purchased, only to watch you use the money totally differently than I was expecting. The other thing they know how to do is something called chaining. Now, chaining really just means going towards the continuum limit. Instead of checking every year, I'm going to check every quarter. Maybe I'm going to check every month or every day or every hour or every minute, and I'm going to compare the prices and quantities. And so as you go towards that continuum limit, you get a different decrease usually in the rate of inflation. But we don't know how to chain a cost of living adjustment, because then it ends up picking up your changes in taste. And the dirty little secret of neoclassical economics is that as soon as your tastes change, the entire theory of human welfare in economics falls apart. Okay? And so what they've done is they've got an elaborate. Do you remember seeing this picture of J-Lo in the Versace dress, right? So it's like nobody can figure out exactly how this thing is staying together. And it seems like the tiniest stitch goes wrong and the whole thing blows apart. That's modern neoclassical economic theory with respect to the changing preference hypothesis, which is they claim just don't allow people to form different tastes from each other or from themselves a minute ago, and everything will be fine. But if you move, the whole thing is going to blow apart. Now, as a result of this, yes, I'm going to make a very strong claim. Economics doesn't know how to calculate the rate of inflation because they need something called gauge theory. And because they don't know gauge theory, and because they don't understand inflation, and because they want to preserve the freedom of the Bureau of Labor Statistics or of the Fed, or whoever puts together GDP and productivity gauges. They want the freedom to make things up as they go along. And I've been like, I want to take that freedom away. You say, trust, we don't trust, we verify, right? I want to disintermediate economists. You're angry at all central bankers. I'm going to one-up you. I'm angry at neoclassical economists who pretend that they know what's going on, and they don't know what's going on. Here's a problem that I have. I want to drive home to the economics profession that they not only don't know how to calculate inflation, but if anybody shows up who does understand gauge theory, who does understand how to calculate inflation, they will destroy that person's career so that they can continue to do what they do. Now, if Bitcoin solves everything, help me construct something to show that the people who are tasked with constructing our rates of inflation and our rates of productivity growth are not using state-of-the-art theory. I'm not even talking about how to turn this into something practical that can be computed every month. Even their theory is wrong.
Why though? Like, we see the CPI calculations. We all know it's bullshit. We see
You
the
say
price.
we all know it's bullshit, but if we are all forced to pay our taxes relative to a CPI-adjusted tax bracket, if we are forced to expect our Social Security or Medicare payments based on a cost of living adjustment, then in a certain sense, it's not bullshit. It's very much like...
But how are you going to enforce that? How are you going to have the policy change so you do?
I'm trying to get into a fight with the economics profession because I know things that they don't know how to do. And they want to say that they are in a position to peer review me. I'm saying, okay, great, let's do it out in the open. Send me your smartest economist, whoever she or he may be. Is it Janet Yellen? Is it Paul Krugman? Send me whoever the smartest economist.
Definitely not Janet Yellen.
Maybe it's
Yeah.
Janet Yellen. Who knows? Okay.
Krugman hates Bitcoin.
It doesn't matter. I'm trying to say something else to you guys.
Yeah,
Maybe
I
it's
know.
not-
No.
it's not
I
working.
hear what you're
we're
saying.
here.
We're listening.
Okay. They don't know how to calculate inflation. They don't know gauge theory. They don't understand why the marginal revolution ends up in gauge theoretic economics. They've lied about preferences. They've lied about tastes. Right? They've gotten so much firepower behind this lie that our tastes don't change and that they're the same between you and me. This was written into a 1977 paper by two supposed Nobel laureates, Becker and Stigler, called De Gustibus Non Est Disputandum, and they said that tastes are like the Rocky Mountains, they are unchanging, and they are the same to all men. F these people. Seriously, I'm just tired of this. These guys aren't that smart. They don't know that much math. They go into every other field. They have something literally called economic imperialism, as if this is a great thing. And they will write, we know more math, so we have the right to invade every other subject. Time to invade economics, gentlemen.
Let's go.
Yeah.
All right.
But what I'm trying to say is
Yeah.
it's the economic heft of the Bitcoin community that can make this happen. I've been trying to do this through intellectual interchange since, I don't know, almost 30 years.
How do we know you're right and we should put our weight behind you, though?
Well, I wouldn't trust. I would verify.
Well, that's what I'm trying to do first.
I know. But what I'm trying to say is that
Like, who else is...
I'll tell you what.
Who else is behind... Like,
I'll tell you what.
Who else are you talking about gauge theory with? Like, where is the gauge theory movement? Or is it just you as a solo warrior?
More or less. I mean, Juan Maldacena wrote an article about this when he was given the $3 million prize. He did not initially cite our work, but he did after he was reminded that he did not originally cite our work. But yeah, it's just me and my wife.
Could you be wrong?
We can find out. You see, if we were to take, for example, the Boskin Commission, which was the first attempt to revisit the construction of the CPI from the perspective of senior economists tasked by the government.
What year was that?
1996, something like that. In the beginning of their report, they tried to show why we needed to move towards cost of living. And they had a too good toy example, maybe chicken and beef, and two sets of prices. Well, if you hypothesize that the consumer was given by the most common form of an idealized preference map called a Cobb-Douglas function, preferences would had to have changed between the two periods that the Boskin Commission wrote down, right? I can back that out. So if you take the initial example in the Boskin Commission report, they can't linearly interpret interpolate prices and preferences given by the Cobb-Douglas linearly between time 0 and time 1 and compute the rate of inflation, because they claim that the index would not exist, technically called a Lasper's Conus index. If you allow the Conus index to have changing preferences, they can't compute it. We can. I can give you a number. Mm-hmm. And then you can ask, well, can they, maybe they can compute it. But I can promise you that in their literature, they claim not only haven't they computed this, but that it is impossible. Work of Fisher and Shell claims that it is impossible to have a changing preference index cost of living adjustment.
Well, the answer is that the U.S. government doesn't want the accurate measurement.
They don't want. I wouldn't say it that way. I would say they don't want something where they're not allowed to toy with it by construction. Mm-hmm. So my goal and your goal,
because they want to control the money.
Well, this is where our commonality and our difference occurs. So my perspective, again, I'm not smart enough to come up with Bitcoin. It's an ingenious thing, never thought of it. We were smart enough to come up with the fact that they don't compute inflation correctly and they don't compute productivity correctly because they don't know enough differential calculus, to be blunt. And because they don't know enough differential calculus in order to make these computations, they've retained rights. Well, who knows? Maybe we'll do a little bit of hedonic adjustment. Maybe we'll do a little bit of outlet bias. Maybe we'll, do a little bit more chaining. And so by saying that it's an art, it's not a science, there's nothing, absolute, they've retained the freedom to mess with our money and to mess with our statistics. So this is really where I come to you from. My context is, well, you want to show me how brilliant you guys are? Shut down not only the economists at the Fed, but also shut down the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the hand-chosen experts. I'm going to claim right now, I don't think Paul Krugman knows how to do a cost of living adjustment with chaining towards the continuum if preferences are shifting. I don't think that this field is mature enough intellectually to peer review its own challenges.
Well, just going to be honest, we just did a whole 15-minute segment where I had no idea what you were talking about. We're in a whole different world. But I think I get what you're saying is let's prove them wrong. I don't understand gauge theory.
I don't know any. You guys say things, again, you can say we don't, but Bitcoin solves everything. I'm getting bored of this. If Bitcoin solves everything, hey, here's something right in your wheelhouse. It's think of this as a
Bitcoin can't fix that. That's people who fix it.
No.
People, what you need is people to help.
I don't know what Bitcoin solves everything means. What does Bitcoin fixes everything mean?
It's a meme.
Okay, what does that mean?
The meme means fix the money, fix the world. The biggest problem in the world at the moment is cheap credit.
But I still don't understand. It means something. I'm a literal guy, right? One of these guys on the autism spectrum. What does it mean? Are we fixing things? Because I would imagine one of the first things that Bitcoiners would want to do would be stop economists from computing the rate of inflation however they want.
Yeah, but they are attacking that. They are attacking that.
No, I would agree with that. To Peter's point about it's people and government that right now, the way it's structured can affect change in that way. And I think you slowly over the coming years and decades are going to have increasingly more individuals that align with Bitcoin's potential and its principles that will enter into the U.S. government, and at some point you may be able to get some status quo around that. And we're starting to make progress. Cynthia Loomis, senator from Wyoming, she's on the Senate Banking Committee, card-carrying Bitcoin.
Do you know what it is? It's the narratives that we have.
Wait a second. What you just did there, I don't want to do that. That's the same thing that got us into trouble with Elon. A card-carrying senator, it's if we're serious about this, F the Senate. Look, I want to put this idea directly across to you guys because I want to hear it fail in the right way. I want to go to war with the idea that the economists are intellectually capable of doing what they say they're doing.
Well, you should sign up to Marty Bent's email. Listen, these conversations are happening. But they haven't gone mainstream out of the bit. It's the Bitcoin that's talking about them.
I understand this, so I'm coming back to this. Right now, I want I want to make a frontal intellectual assault on the Bureau of Labor Statistics' right, ability, and intellectual capability to calculate rates of inflation according to a theory which they have in fact got wrong.
Let's fucking go.
Okay. I don't know how to do that.
Well,
I've been trying to do that since this is where I come from, right?
Okay, so you understand the theory. Maybe you need some PR.
Maybe. But Bitcoin solves this. Bitcoin fixes this. In other words, every time I try to lean on Bitcoin fixes this, the podium gives way. Okay? So I just keep thinking, okay, here I am trying to lean on Bitcoin fixes this. If Bitcoin...
Yeah, but you're confusing what humans can do and what a protocol can do.
Sorry, I don't really understand this. Are we in agreement that one of the greatest reasons for Bitcoin's success is that we're afraid of a printing press? I am afraid of a printing press. You guys?
Yeah.
Okay, great. One of the reasons I'm afraid of the printing press is redistribution. Another reason is inflation.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those are connected. Would we agree that humiliating those economists who tell the rest of us to F off, we're smarter than they are. Let me make a different...
I think I know what you're saying, Travis. Travis, think about it like this. We all know that inflation is calculated in a subjective way that allows the money printer to go on, right? We've had the energy FUD recently, and whether you agree or not with what Michael Saylor did, he was trying to build the narrative so they actually have the data. So when anyone, that fucking idiot Sorkin from the New York Times or the people of Bloomberg or the FT, when they go and print their bullshit, we have to go, no, we have actual data. You're entirely wrong. And we have data that is both allows us to look at the mine as a self inside our industry, but compare it to other industries. And we can go, you are wrong. So I think what Eric's is saying is like similar. We all know inflation's bullshit. We keep saying it. Krugman put something up on Twitter and the Bitcoin is piling and laughing. But we don't have the actual data to go, here, your statistics, like journalists cannot
there's the
ignore
data
it.
and there's also the theory.
Yeah.
Really, what would be very valuable to me is I would like to get into a fight with any leading economist.
Well, the Bitcoiners will be with you for that.
Okay. I don't know that they will or they won't, right? But we'll find out. Okay. My claim is that the theoretical basis of a cost of living adjustment, which is what they say that inflation should be based on, cost of living standard. If you chain a cost of living with changing preferences, the current theory collapses. They want a chain and they want a cola. And they want to measure the inflation. They want to tell us where to get off. My feeling is, over my dead body, you're not intellectually competent. Okay? Now, that's a huge statement. I'm not an economist by any standard measure. I'm willing to go on the show and say I'm an economist simply for the pleasure of getting an economist to say, that guy doesn't know anything about economics. He doesn't know anything about theories of inflation. Okay. Right now, I want to drag this back to an old fight between Irving Fisher and Ragnar Frisch. Irving Fisher wrote down a whole bunch of axioms that said how you measure inflation. And Ragnar Frisch said, you know what? If you impose all of those axioms, there is no gauge that will work. I can prove that there will be no gauge that will work of inflation. The resolution of that is that one of Fisher's axioms was wildly off, right? And it says that if prices and quantities begin and end at the same levels, rate of inflation should be 1.00, i.e. no inflation. Okay. Fisher was wrong about that. That's coming from what I call the Flat Earth Society of Economics. What I'm trying to say is, you guys are rich. You're powerful. You're in the headlines all the time. You're whining and complaining about inflation. I don't want to whine and complain about inflation. I want to go pick a fight with the supposed people who tell us that they're smart enough to manage our economy. And all of these people who go out to, Jackson Hole, Wyoming in the summer and who put on suits and ties and have these resonant baritone voices and tell us what reality is and isn't, I don't think they're that smart.
You got to find a way of selling at them.
No. I don't know how to fix everything, but Bitcoin does. And so what I keep trying to say is, you're rich, you're focused on inflation, and you don't like to be told what to do by people who are dumber than you are, who have beautiful, titles, and they sit in fine chairs at wonderful institutions. All I'm trying to say is, I don't know, do you guys want to do something or not? If you don't want to do something, feel free. We can sit around whining about inflation and the fact that they don't know how to compute it, or we can actually take the fight to them where they live because they're not intellectually capable of actually returning fire. Now, I can't figure out how to get this issue off of my plate and onto yours. But if I were you, I'd go directly after the Bureau of Labor Statistics and say, you guys are using what? A chained less pairs, cola, something? How do you come up with this basket? Are you sure that that inflation isn't at?
But it's too. This is the point. You get into these areas.
I don't actually
you lose people.
I don't care.
But you do care.
No, but I don't.
You can't do that. You can't, Eric. You can't say like, I want the support.
No, I can give you. I can write something down to show you exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And then you can say, oh, it's over my pay grade. And then somebody else can say, this is too complicated. And somebody else can say, this isn't data driven. Okay. Then Bitcoin can't do everything.
You want to go and pick a fight. I'm telling you, got to make it a way that is easier to digest and understand.
You guys figure that out.
Yeah, but
no, look, I can write down what I'm saying.
Write it down.
Mathematically.
Okay.
And somebody in the community can figure out what I'm saying. But that's not the energy behind it. The energy behind it is I take you guys literally when you say fix the money, fix the world, or Bitcoin fixes everything, or what we're really against is central banking and hyperinflationary and blah, blah, blah. Okay. Honestly, I don't see you guys as being part of the fight against neoclassical economics. I see you guys as talking about Austrian economics amongst yourselves. But in order to flex this stuff, you actually have to beat them. And I'm going to say it in terms that we learned from Morpheus. Morpheus says something to Neo like, I'm not going to lie to you, Neo. Anyone who's ever stood his ground to fight an agent has lost and died. Okay. Everyone who takes on neoclassical economics, maybe with the exception of Daniel Kahneman, fails. We don't know why. It's time to take this thing on, gentlemen. And what I really mean is it's not that smart. And we need to basically make the point, Paul Krugman isn't that smart.
I think we're all in agreement on that.
No, he's pretty smart.
Well,
he's not Ken Arrow.
Yeah.
Ken Arrow is really smart.
He's smart if you believe his Keynesian theory of economics or his...
It's not that. He became something else. He was really a pretty great economist. It doesn't matter. What I'm trying to say is it's time to pick a fight with neoclassical economics. And I see you guys as being sort of inward looking.
I don't think that's fair. We're definitely outward looking.
All right, well then let's pick a fight with these guys. Or you know what? I don't really know where we are. More or less my feeling about this and the reason to have me on the show and to talk about markets is that I am convinced that we are being called upon to create something that isn't capitalism, isn't communism, doesn't use fiat money, that understands how many unincorporated externalities exist in markets, that understand the danger of markets as a runaway automated process. As much as I hate having Janet Yellen tell me what to do, I also hate the idea of being hooked up to a potential doomsday machine, which can't be interfered with if it starts to become that AGI that we worry about being told that it has to make paper clips. And one of the great dangers of Bitcoin that we're seeing is maybe the idea of having something so decentralized actually winds up undoing everything because effectively there isn't anyone in control. We don't know.
Maybe we do need to unwind everything.
Maybe. I'm not, but you say that casually.
No, I'm not.
You've got kids on this.
No, listen, look, I don't know the answer.
Part of this is like Balaji's line of thinking is that you're going to undergo this like multi-decade reorganization of how groups of people come together, and that the internet makes everybody, like that you can just come together in these communities that have much more acute belief systems, and that just over time the concept of a nation state is going to start to dismantle, and people are going to be, local is going to matter more because it's who you're physically around, but you're going to spend more and more time in a digital space, and you're just going to choose very specifically who you're going to connect to in that digital space. And TBD on. I mean, I think you can imagine 50 years from now, lots of little factions, and where war fits into all that. I wouldn't pretend.
You know
to
what
know,
Breedlove
but-
would be saying here? If Breedlove was, he would be talking about the logic of violence and that technology changes the logic of violence. And, not always, not always can we say it's for the better. Sometimes for the worse, sometimes for the better. Maybe we just are having to go through this shift right now. We can't change it. Maybe the forces at hand are too big.
Maybe, but right now I'm feeling like we don't have much time. And by not much time, I mean a few hundred years at the outset. So it's not like by next Thursday we better have a solution. But I do think we're playing Russian roulette as of now. Yeah. It's just the gun has an enormous number of chambers that are hollow, right? That are empty. And as a result, it feels like we have a lot of time. But really what we have is that we have a very small amount of time. And I guess
what's the action? What's the action then? What are you saying next?
Look, I want to do next level. What do I want to do next?
What are we doing next?
I want to get institutions that can actually pay people who are heterodox and make them. I want to redistribute fuck you money before we redistribute regular money.
Just come down to El Salvador and see where that's being redistributed to change things there. It's interesting. I'll talk to you about it off this.
I'm interested.
Yeah.
But I really think that the biggest problem is that the people we need to be fat and happy and working on next level stuff are in general under somebody else's thumb. And so one of the things that's really important to me is giving more people use of their middle finger who are actually trying to build and do things. And in general, what I find is that there isn't a lot of ethos around I want to empower the people who are going to take down these structures who actually maybe know what they're doing or what they're talking about differently than I want to empower everybody who has the ability to get rich.
Well, listen, what I will say, and I think a thought to leave you with is that what I know amongst the Bitcoiners is they don't trust, and they're very distrusting of the education system and the institutions and the media industry and yada, yada. They're getting really fucking rich, and they do distribute their money, and they maybe are distributing that money into projects they care about, like interesting, different kinds of projects.
So are they? I can't imagine that they don't want to take out neoclassical economics.
You can't speak for you can't speak for individuals or them as a group, but
No,
there
I'm
will
just
be
saying,
someone. There will be someone.
Where is the
Well, a lot of
well-heeled-
them are going to hear this.
Where
Yeah,
is
so
the
that's a good start.
well-heeled?
Yeah.
Where is the well-heeled group that wants to tell neoclassical economists to shut the hell up?
Hey, listen, a lot of them will.
Okay.
Especially the Austrian
So that's
economists.
one thing that's really important to me. Another thing that's really important to me is we got to get back to science. And if everybody's worried about losing their job every time they open their mouth, right? They didn't say something that was diverse enough, inclusive enough.
Oh,
and
we
had
all
enough
agree on this.
equity. What?
We all agree on this one.
No, we don't.
No, we do.
Well, we do, but look, I don't have the money to found a new science institute. So let me know when one of these people who does have enough money to found a new science institute founds a new science institute.
How much do you need?
Hundreds of millions. What do you got?
Well, it's pocket change for a few of our friends.
No, it's not pocket change for anyone.
For a few.
One of the things, having hung out with billionaires, I now can say one of the sad features that I did not, because I didn't hang out with billionaires up until 10, 15 years ago at all. I didn't know any. Nobody's got a spare $1 million. You hear people, oh, $1 million is nothing to him. That's like chump change. No, I've now met enough people who are seriously rich to tell you that $1 million is not chump change to any one of these people. So Mike Lazaridis endowed the Perimeter Institute for Theoretical Physics. I think was it Citigroup did the Santa Fe Institute. I don't see anything that is trying to endow something new. You know, Bill Gates, who came from the traditional and untraditional economy, you know, probably did more trying to get, you know, Sal Khan and the Khan Academy going on than I've seen the energy coming out of the Bitcoin universe. So my feeling about this is that I'm somewhat watching a different version of the tech money, where the tech money came with the tech ideology. Software eats the world. And that was inhibitory of any attempt to actually rebuild the world. Well, why rebuild the world if software is there to eat it? Well, in some sense, the problem with Bitcoin is that it's going to put the money in the hands of people who understand that certain central features need to be decentralized. But there are other things that need to be re-centralized, right? And that's going to be a much harder lesson to a group of people. And trust is important, right? Trust is, yes, it's true that sometimes you can't trust other people, but sometimes you have to.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't figure out how to get to trust, to re-centralization, to building, in some sense, you're just one more utopian community that came through promising everything to everyone, and you couldn't deliver. And so the reason that I stay on this is that when somebody says Bitcoin fixes that, Bitcoin fixes everything, I get real dumb. I say, great, because I've got a laundry list of things that I want. And then people say, oh, well, Bitcoin can't fix this. It can't. And then if
I understand the call to
then
action.
shut the fuck up.
Yeah, it's a meme though. It's a bit like when
It's
somebody.
not a-
But have fun
No,
staying
but
Paul's a
that's-
meme, but they say it to Elon Musk.
No.
It's a meme.
Actually, it's not a meme.
No,
Because
I understand
when you
your
say
point, though.
that, what you're doing is you're playing the Mott and Bailey game. Oh, no, we didn't really mean that. Yes, you did.
Semi-meme. It's a
No,
meme.
no.
You know what memes are
Sorry,
exaggerations?
I get really dumb. Maybe you mean it, maybe you don't. Do you? I think you don't.
Well, some people do.
I don't think they mean it.
Hmm.
I think that the people with Bitcoin wealth don't mean it. I think that the point is that when it comes, that we have a huge number of problems. Now, the reason I bring up the inflation problem is that it's the clearest indication to me that the community doesn't even care about what the community cares about.
Yeah, so again, I disagree with you. I mentioned Marty Bent. I mean, he's regularly talking about this, and there are other people having the conversation. They care about the inflation problem. Maybe they just don't want to attack it the way you do,
That's fine.
or they haven't
Then
bought
it
into
doesn't
your
fix
idea.
it. What I'm trying, we're not understanding each other. What I'm trying to say is I happen to be in possession of a piece of knowledge. And that is that all of neoclassical economics is vulnerable to the changing preference problem in ordinal welfare theory.
But this is a claim. This is your claim.
Yeah, but it's a mathematical claim.
Well,
I can show you what the paradox it results in.
yeah, but what's the process that should go through? Is it paper, peer reviewed, tested? Like,
No, well,
has to be sold to people.
okay, assume that I give you a paper.
Yes.
Forget about peer review. Assume that I give you a paper which shows what the solution is, shows you places in the literature that says that this problem can't be solved. So on the one hand, it's a backwards compatible solution that is claimed, and another, it's claimed that no solution can exist. My point isn't about gauge theoretic economics in this particular issue. This is an opportunity to show you that the economists are not honest. They are not the experts, and they are not honest. Their process of peer review should naturally result in this thing being accepted. Yes, it does everything that the old system could do, plus it does new things, plus it contradicts the claim that we made in our own literature that this is impossible, right? Now, what is the goal of that? The goal of that is not even the construction of an inflation gauge. It is to say, you economists are not the experts on markets. Are we clear? Right? That's the point. Which is going on offense against the world's most offensive community. This is the world's #1 offensive community intellectually. No other community that I'm aware of would put imperialism after their subject matter. Can you imagine biologists talking about biological imperialism?
I wouldn't imagine thinking about that.
Yeah, well, what I'm trying to say is economists talk about economic imperialism.
Mm-hmm.
It's time for them to suffer a serious intellectual defeat so that the rest of us can get at our own economy.
But the intellectual defeat has to be one that works. It has to be.
I can't say it a million times. There's a problem of the theoretical construction of an inflation gauge. Currently, that is something called a CONUS index. You either know about CONUS indices or you don't. If you don't, that's fine.
Nope.
Okay. Cost of living adjustment is based on a CONUS index.
Mm-hmm.
CONUS indices are based on welfare, a theory of welfare. Then there's an issue of something called chaining. Are you familiar with chaining? Okay. So chaining and cost of living adjustments are the two ingredients here, and they're based on a theory of preferences over market choices. I want to show that this community is too intellectually corrupt to manage our markets. That is my point.
But take my feedback, okay? I think the pieces that you are missing is a way of the average person being able to digest this, because I think a lot of people, no, this is important. You're like,
So send me a bunch of interns.
what I'm saying, no.
Send me a bunch of interns, and we'll do it in a studio, and you guys will tell me. But I don't want to do this, right? What's boring me about this?
Yeah, but you're contradicting yourself now,
Go
because you
ahead.
said, I want to go to war.
Yeah.
Okay, but then hear me out. What I'm saying is the piece you're missing is like a lot of this stuff, it just goes over people's heads. It's like you talk about a whole bunch of concepts and bring them together, and honestly, I'm like, what the fuck is he talking about? And am I an idiot? Or
No,
it's
no.
like everyone?
Come on, it's not.
No, what I'm saying is that all you need is a way of making that to translate. Trust me, as someone whose job it is, like I am known for doing a show that gets people to break things down so the everyman can understand it.
Do you have a whiteboard?
What? No.
I'll do it right here for you on a whiteboard.
Travis has to go to dinner.
Next episode.
I think no. I'm not that I'm with you, not against you. What I'm saying is, if I don't understand, I don't understand.
Then maybe it's pointless.
No. You're giving up because you're giving
It's
up.
not that I'm giving up. I have to figure out where. Let me give you my calculation.
Yeah.
My issue is I have a different issue than the rest of you. Many of you guys don't want to be under anyone's thumb. The libertarian wing of your community is like,
Okay, well, I've agreed I'm not in that.
I know. Don't tell me what to do, man. Well, I have some of that in me, even though I'm not a libertarian. But my feeling is slightly smaller, right? My feeling is, if you're dumber than I am and you're not public spirited, I don't want your hands on the wheel. If you're smarter than I am and you're public spirited, we can talk about it. But if you're dumber and you're not public spirited, there's no way in the world I want you telling me what to do.
What if you're dumber and public spirited?
I don't think they are dumber and public spirited. It's an interesting puzzle. What if they're smarter and not public spirited?
All I'm saying is, like, we could do circles.
I know, but I'm not interested in that. What I'm interested in is I want the people who currently are pretending that they know enough about the economy to force. I want them to be forced to admit, yeah, we don't know how to do stuff.
Yeah, and what I'm telling you is that I think to get there, my personal experience is that you need to find a way of making this so everyone can understand. And when I say that, then not to say you don't care. Like,
No, it's not that.
you clearly
Peter,
care.
If I have a board and we spend an hour and a half, right?
Next trip.
Then the objection becomes something else.
Okay.
And then the objection becomes something else. My feeling is I'm 55 years old. I'm going to be checked out. In 40 years' time, I'm out of this place. Okay? I don't want to have a non-convergent conversation. What I want to do is I want to disintermediate the people who've stepped forward and say, we are the smart people. And my feeling is, no, you're not. And in part, part of celebrating Satoshi and saying, Janet Yellen isn't our A-team intellectually. I don't know who Satoshi is, but Satoshi, in the internet language, Satoshi greater than Yellen. Okay? So, these are supposed to be the smart kids. I want to go to war with the theory that has us under somebody else's thumb. Because whether it's Paul Krugman or, Marty Feldstein, in the old days, somebody was always telling us, Alan Greenspan, okay, the Oracle has spoken. I'm anti-Oracle. And the most important thing to being anti-Oracle is to say, you guys always claim that you're the smartest people in the room. You claim that you have the right to be in sociology, in psychology, in every field weaker than you are. Okay?
Are you talking about us as the big
No. The central banking, neoclassical economics.
Yeah.
So I keep thinking, oh, okay, so you guys have a problem with my enemy. So you're supposed to be my really close friends.
Yeah, but we are.
Well,
that's why I want to have this conversation. Everyone's going to listen to this.
I think that there would be a general view amongst a lot of Bitcoiners that you wouldn't affect change by calling them out. Like we all go log onto YouTube and watch a Jerome Powell live press conference, And in the comment section on the YouTube video, all it is people going, money printer, go burr and buy Bitcoin. And you sit there and you go, Bitcoin is, if it succeeds, going to dismantle all of this. And, calling it out, whether or not it's with a research paper or whether it's, just, yelling as loud as you can, it's not going to make them change. They're not going to change their actions.
Put some money behind it. You guys are money people. You love money. You talk about money constantly. I keep talking about this technology. People bang me on the head, right? Hey, Eric, wake up. It's money. Okay, it's money. You're rich. You're rich. You're so incredibly rich. You bought planes with your Bitcoin. Fantastic. You bought private islands. Love it. Why don't you put some money into disintermediating the people who are constantly going to keep you sidelined?
I get that.
You're not doing that. Or why don't you put some money into physics research trying to get us off the planet? You're not doing that. So then the point is, okay, but I bought my mother a new house. It's like, awesome, wonderful. Well, you don't understand. That's freedom. I get it.
I think you're miscategorized. I think that narrative is miscategorized in a group of people.
Please tell me.
Look, of course, some people are going to buy themselves some nice things at some point.
I'm not.
Yeah. But the point being
who
is,
doesn't want to buy this? That's not my point. My point is, you're not.
They've got different agendas from you, maybe.
No, okay. This is just, it's irritating for the following reason. When you have a leading brand, which is X solves everything, and then you don't want it to get hit, you say, it's just a meme. And then you say, actually the community this, and then you say, okay, well, I task the community. Well, actually, there is no community. It's just like, okay, is this all Quicksilver? Well, so-and-so speaks for our community. Really, they speak for your, no one speaks for our community. Oh, shit. Trust, we don't trust, we verify. Oh, but we trusted Elon. Oh, but now we don't trust Elon. It's just like, okay, let's calm down. What is a statement? What does Bitcoin fix? And who do you trust? And where is the community? And who more or less is thought to be an important voice in it? Because otherwise, it's just like the contradiction of the last thing somebody said. You should read Saylor. Does Saylor speak for the community? Not at all.
Well, it's just, it is, the reality of it, it's a moving feast. It changes, it evolves, it changes shape. It's like a, I don't know, like a brain.
Terminator 2.
And it's learning. Yeah, Terminator 2.
Okay,
yes.
so, yes.
I tried to break into the cinema to see that because they wouldn't let me in.
Okay, but the Terminator 2 thing, so it's shape-shifting. It's Quicksilver.
Yeah.
You don't understand it. You understand Zen.
And it's learning.
But that also makes it much less interesting. I mean, in part, the idea is, I very specifically don't think that we're going to get rid of government. Government is going to continue.
I agree.
I don't think we're going to get rid of all fiat currency for various reasons.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that we have an upcoming rendezvous where I think there's going to be a lot of pressure to make Bitcoin highly regulated.
It already is in places.
And it really bothers me about what's coming. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to disintermediate the blockchain, because I didn't want things to be traceable, even if everything was anonymous. And then I understand, okay, well, we founded it on this. And so if you take that away, you're attacking. At the end of the day, it's very intellectually unsatisfying to be caught in the same conversations when you see a world that you want to get to. And every time you try to hit one of the claims of the community that you think that can get you to that next level, you run up against a different claim of the community, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's part of what the frustration is. The part of the frustration is that I saw Bitcoin really early on and got wildly excited about it. And I wrote this thing, please check out Go Virtual Young Man. And then it just doesn't, like, same world. I'm still looking at the same world. I'm looking at a different group of people who've gotten some control over their own lives by believing in something heterodox that worked. And I think that's beautiful and it's wonderful. But man, I was excited about this beyond that. I was excited about this as a society world-changing event. And maybe the problem is that I got excited in 2010 And I got excited because I thought that there was more, that Bitcoin was more. In my own mind, I saw distributed computing as we can port the conservation laws of the physical world into the digital layer. We can reestablish ourselves in some reflection of ourselves inside of our computers. We can take the network of computers and turn it into something like the space-time substrate, and we can have, just as gold travels on the space-time substrate, we could have digital gold traveling here, and gold has no stench. So we could get rid of the stench, right? That was sort of my thinking. And then I had this idea that from the early 90s, markets are just gauge theory. And you know what? Gold, which is a physical system of quarks and leptons, is also just gauge theory. And there's some sort of beautiful hope that we would do something that would be radically different, that would be beyond capitalism, beyond communism, beyond this planet, and really reflect on some sort of world-changing potential. And I guess the thing that I'm seeing is just like, okay, somebody came up with a new fucking meme.
No
or
way,
laser
man.
eyes, or
No.
toxicity is our best feature because it tells people who don't belong here to go away. It's like, whatever, I'm getting fucking tired.
Listen, I'm going to finish, but I think we can always come back to this. Memes are powerful, so I would defend memes. But do I agree with them all the time? No. Do we take things too far sometimes? But this is a decentralized moving beast. But the thing about Bitcoin that's great, Eric, is that everyone has the freedom to do what they want. If you want to do this, and you can go and do it. My only feedback to you is that I'm not the smartest man, but I am a fucking good salesman. And maybe there's another way to sell this to people.
So what?
Sell this the way that the approach to attacking the neoclassical economists, maybe it just needs sharpening. Like like we as Bitcoiners, we need to sharpen our tools. We make good arguments and bad arguments. Maybe the arguments that you want to build, they just need sharpening in a way that is digestible by a large group of people. Because I would imagine when people listen to this interview, and I think it's been very different from what I expected, a lot of fun. But on this point, I could imagine, I could be wrong, but I imagine some people will say, I kind of got lost and didn't understand it. I've got a good gauge for that. That's my gauge theory. I got a good gauge for that. So maybe that's what it is, but time to digest it, I think.
Well, my guess is that this is going to land in some way where people are just going to go back to their snap to grid perspective. Like, I heard a bunch of stuff and it didn't really speak to Bitcoin, or this guy really just, he's against the community, doesn't understand toxicity. That's tiring. What I'm really excited about, let me just be very clear about it. You've got the world's greatest recent innovation by some measures, and it's doing an enormous amount for an enormous number of people. Unfortunately, it comes with a little bit of ethos, which is it lends to a simplification. Namely, we can get by with memes, we can get by with slogans, and toxicity is our friend. Trust, don't verify, don't trust. These are not things that are mature enough to replace the corrupt structures that I think are within its reach. And so my feeling is I wanted to ally myself, not necessarily to become this community, but to ally myself with this community for fighting our common enemy, which is allowing, in general, much older people who do not understand what pressures we're under to continue to direct our society from positions of power. And my concern is that for some reason, the memes are hollow. If Bitcoin can't even go after the neoclassical economists who populate the Fed in an area where they are totally vulnerable, which is the topic of inflation, for which Bitcoin, this is Bitcoin's killer product. Its killer product is that you can hide from central bankers who are living through some MMT fantasy. You can short central bankers using Bitcoin. My feeling about this was, hey, it happens that they don't know how to compute this. It could be that they did know how to compute this and that they still didn't want to compute it, in which case I would have nothing to offer. But by virtue of the fact that they can't compute this, and it's in your wheelhouse, and you're not even going after that, or you're not even asking the right questions. It's like, well, Eric, can you sell it? Well, why don't you send me a team of salespeople? Go take some Bitcoin and buy a team of salespeople and tell me what I need to sell. And then tell me a bunch of visual stuff that I need to do. And go buy the visual stuff. Then hold a conference. Then have a prize. But ultimately, I would like to stop listening to Paul Krugman. And it's very important that if we find the thermal port on the economics Death Star, that our aim be true. And gentlemen, I thought that was what the Bitcoin community wanted to do. Why are you and your X-Wing fighters rocketing down, the canyons on a Death Star, headed right for the exhaust vent, and you won't even take your shot on inflation? Are you guys kidding me?
No, listen, look, we're just not seeing it the way you see it. We're definitely going there. But look, it is part of our narrative. But let's let people digest this. Let's see what people say, because there will be some feedback on this.
Yeah.
But thank you for coming.
Thank you for
I
having me.
appreciated it. It was definitely a challenge and a test, but it was definitely worth it. Travis,
A pleasure.
thank you for coming on,
Enjoyed
man.
the conversation.
Thank you to my man, Rich, for letting us borrow his studio. I'm sure we'll do this again at some point.
Inshallah, my friend.
Inshallah.